Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'll turn you my
Oh.
Was that you, Andrea?
No, shouldn't have been.
Oh,
Did somebody else log
beautiful
in?
spring.
I know, isn't that pretty?
Wow. You want to be outside where it's not snowing.
Actually, I get captures of snow coming up.
Did you still?
Look at yours.
Well, welcome everybody
It's about rosemary.
to our advisor sharing meeting. Thanks for being here. I think probably the only person that you may or may not know in the room is our friend Ashley Higgs, also lovingly referred to as Brecken Higgins. If I don't want to be recognized, it's Brecken Higgins. There's a long story behind that, which we'll share another time. Ashley is working, one of our specialists working on the education pathway. And so she'll be working as we bring in Educators Rising and doing some of those things. So unfortunately, my apologies in advance, you'll start seeing her face in our meetings. So your day is now complete if you have not known me yet. All right.
It just got a little bit brighter.
Brighter than that clock. That's funny. Okay. We're missing Mike Smoot. Mike's not able to make it today. Doug is representing Mike. Go, Doug. But I think we've got every other CTSO represented. We are going to jump around on the agenda a little bit. If you didn't know, there was an active shooter this morning at Trolley Square, and Salt Lake Community College had an event that a lot of our staff went to this morning at Trolley Square. So while everyone was safe and accounted for, once the police cleared the building, they resumed or began probably the training. So everybody went back up and they're a little behind. So Wendy is going to be joining us. Hopefully, I told her to be here by 1, and we'll talk about budgets and some things with Wendy here at that point in time. So let's jump to Leadership Training Institute really quick. So this year, I think we're ready to go. Who is our host CTSO this year? All right.
The BLA.
And we'll be up at Utah State University. What else do they need to know?
What time are we arriving? I should know that since it's got to be a
Where are
little
we
bit.
going?
USU?
Utah State University.
USU. And we are going to arrive a little earlier if they want to. This mostly affects Megan because she has students that are already there. They're already college students. But we have a tour planned of the campus from 1:30 to like our start time, which is like 3. So our official start time will still be like the normal 3 o'clock-ish time. And then
So June 6th.
6th and through the 8th.
I just needed to know because I have a hair appointment at 9 a.m. I want to make sure I'm done by.
You're going to be beautiful.
Come in here, foil.
That will never happen. I see her in foil. It's not
And,
This is natural.
and after the silent poll, we will, it's not officially scheduled, but I have emailed USU about doing the 3-hour Works course on Friday night. So, and I put in a suggestion that you stay within your CTSOs. And I said that might be a little bit harder for them because some have bigger, student groups and some have smaller student groups. But he didn't think that should be a problem. But, so it's going to be a little bit of an abridged course because it normally is a 4-hour one. But we'll let it be up to them, and I just think it'll be fun.
And even if they had to go half of my group and half, it's fine.
Okay.
As long as the majority of the group
is down. I think there's enough separation. I told him we'll be in like 7 groups, and so do it that way, and don't know that some groups are a little bit bigger than others, and I think straight groups. What else? I have the forms in the OneDrive for that already ready to go, but I didn't know if you're changing anything on that or
Not
is that
for
for
this
next
year.
year?
That's for next year.
Okay, so then it is ready to go, and the form is in there in the OneDrive in your forms folder, in the CTSO folder. And it has, so there's a registration, and then there's that code of conduct and CTE story. We're going to do that again and market that out. That was really great for us to have all those stories last year of your top students. So we'll use those again in our media throughout the year. So So bring those code of conducts and your registration can go anytime. And I updated also the national travel form. So it's not 3 Excel forms, it's 1 fillable PDF. And so that's in there now too. In the forms area. Otherwise, any other questions and I'll.
It's still Thursday through Saturday, right?
Yeah.
And you said we're meeting earlier?
So earlier, I know that's really the last day of school for 2 school districts. So if you have students in those 2 school districts, we understand that. So we didn't want to make it any mandatory. We're starting at 1:30, but we will be starting at 1:30 for the campus tour and then the 3 o'clock time. And since we're up in USU, it might be hard for if you have anybody in Park City or Canyons that are your state officers to get there on time, and we get that. But yeah, but
Are
that's
they on the campus tour?
Right.
Yes.
yes. You get swag. They're getting swag and stuff if they go on the campus tour. I think it will be fun, and I think it'll be a good experience. So it'll be good.
You'll be in the middle of prepping.
No, they're on the
I'll be already prepared.
Probably days. We all get.
Yeah.
I pay you enough that you can buy your own.
So we're closed for FFA.
I know. What's up with that?
Just for you.
Well,
Yeah, what's up with that?
Open, they are open again.
Don't worry, they said FFA's coming, we're shutting down.
Yeah, they were renovating, of course. We had a tour scheduled there and everything, and then like, the week before, they're like, oh, we kind of forgot to tell you guys. We're closed for renovations, and we're like, but
No, it's
Paul Pat gave our kids that were scheduled to go on tours the little ice cream tickets, so they can go back another day.
I've had many ice cream tickets that have never been redeemed, and I love ice cream. Okay, so we're good for LTI?
Yep.
We are, as we hit the budget item, as we move along around on our agenda, we're going to talk about some proposed changes that I think you're going to like for next year. But we'll come back to that one. Let's talk about CT program reviews, formerly known as audits, now known as program reviews, because we realize these are really not audits. So after we went through that process this year, I wanted to get a little feedback about the process. And after we went through the process, I completely and totally updated the program of quality review, the standards that we for. Did I send those to you guys when we give you your responses? Well, please.
In your CTSO folder.
That's usually where. But basically, as I search for them, my computer's very slow today. Basically, just know that we updated the standards a little bit. They're not going to be shocking to you. They are completely and totally in line with the questions that we ask and things that we cover. There remains 2 standards, program management and fiscal management. Again, the fiscal piece is not a true audit. And we're going to talk about that later on too. And our thoughts and ideas around that. So hang on a second. Let me see if I can connect to. Quit doing other work while you're supposed to be listening.
You're talking about audit and your paper and where it was.
G grad. Computer stuff.
Yeah.
You know, when you're on vacation for 3 days.
Working and see. I was call it UCs.
Yeah. I saw videos. I saw you do secretaries. Places that I know, like.
Very blossoms. Okay, it's going to be coming up in a second on screens. Hang it on.
Yeah, you should be able to.
in my head, the Jeopardy music is playing.
It's on the table over there. Yeah.
Thank you, Brick.
Take a minute.
Okay, so again. Hold please. Talia likes to click too often and too quickly. All right, we're going to sit for a second. So basically there's program management and fiscal management. The standards really go back to the kinds of questions we asked you, the things that we expect, and really at some point in time, I'll be able to see it. If I send it to you, Andrew, if I email it to you, can you send it? That'd be better. I meant to share it with you when we sent you your.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That's been like a
Check it out.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
That's awesome.
so here you go. You can take a look on screen, and I've just sent it to Andrea so that she can send it to you guys. What you'll see is standard one is program management. Again, still an advisory board, USBE is in place. So I'll let you read through those. You don't need me to read those. So still budget oversight by the advisory board, fiscal monitoring by the advisory board. That's the quarterly checking account, quarterly and year-end financial statements, and a budget. That you share program of quality review findings with the board. Advisor supervision with USBE, customer support, new advisor training, and membership reporting, which we're going to talk about. That's the first standard. Not a big change at all from where we've been. Standard 2, computerized accounting system, same one as before. That transaction form, how to deal with meals and what documentation is required, gift cards, your whole financial setup. Records must be kept for at least 6 years plus current. To authorize signatures on the check, that's the same as it is now. Full financial audit conducted periodically. We're going to get a little more specific hopefully today. Process in place for travel, that's the same as before. And then we added the equipment inventory piece and the requirements for that. So those are the standards. Hopefully updated quite a bit. We hadn't updated those in a large number of years. So as we do this, you're not up again for another year and a half. It goes by quickly, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yes. So that will be what we refer to when we do this.
Did you say Andrew's gonna send those out?
Yep, I'm about to. I just got her email. That shows you how slow it is.
I'm sitting right here
Yeah,
next to you, and it took that long.
You know what I mean, so I just.
So other thoughts and feedback about the program reviews. I would like to point out that for the most part, I was there 100% of the time this year.
It's great to have you. It's so nice having you here.
It is.
But it's a different
I
experience.
get it that it's hard to have multiple people doing that and trying to lead it, and it makes it difficult for me to write reports about it. So hopefully that was helpful to all of you.
I would.
It doesn't have to be me, but just whoever that one person is. So it's great. I like seeing all of you as much as I hope you like seeing me.
Because we're so sorry.
What other, and whoever goes first, my apologies again in advance because you're the guinea pig and it's like 2 years since we did this last. How do you do these? And so we kind of figured out as we go. Thoughts, questions, ways to improve that process. Hopefully it's a good process for you. We don't want you to be scared coming into those. Just, you know, you making sure we're all on the same page. Let's talk a little bit about credit cards. So one of the consistent issues as we went through those 7 performance reviews, quality reviews, the question about CTSO credit cards, most of those are issued to you or your staff personally. I don't know that we have a policy at USBE about points, but if I remember correctly, most of you, if not all of you, said that any points that you earn from your CTSO credit cards are put back into use by the CTSO. Is that accurate?
Well, mine are
I
still
think
sitting
that is in the policy manual. The CTSO policy manual says membership points belong to the organization.
If not, it should. And guess what? I'm going to be in the process of already in this. So
I'm pretty sure it's in there.
I would love to be able to use my card. It's kind of troublesome.
Free hotels and stuff.
It's a lot of money. It can be a lot of money. I mean, I spend
Some-
$140,000 on hotels and $100,000.
Some of them you can
on
even
flights.
reuse the points for money back on the card.
But we don't get any benefits because we use the debit card because we can't.
The problem is still mostly.
I'm not willing to put my social security on.
So Richard, what did you just say? Because you had a really good statement.
That all credit card membership points belong to the organization and must be, I think it says, must be used to benefit the student.
Okay.
For the students.
Perfect.
Something to that effect.
Okay, so we'll talk about the policy manual in just a second. If it's not there, we will put it in because we're going to make some major changes to this document before our next meeting as well. Okay, so everybody's consistent. You're feeling good about those points, the benefits you get from this credit cards, that those are being put back in for students. Any other thoughts? Be brutal, be brutally honest. You're not going to hurt my feelings. You might make me cry a little bit, not really. Ways to improve those performance reviews. Hopefully you find them helpful.
The only question I had was, now we have to deal with what an audit is. And I understand we're going to discuss that in the future because that obviously is not an audit. I'm still confused on how that is supposed to take place or how to do that.
We're going to talk about that.
Other than that, it was actually a very positive experience. I will say that again. Although you had reason to be upset with this. You weren't, so thank you for that. You handled it very professionally, is the way I should say it.
Okay,
I think for me, I really like the feedback because it's like, I feel like we're kind of on an island a lot. And so it's good to get feedback of saying, yes, this is good, or maybe, hold back on that. Like just any type of more of that feedback is really helpful for us. That's what I think.
good.
Yeah, positive and critic.
Corrected.
Critiquing, but both the good and the bad. Like, right, you're doing this great. Please improve on this. Sure.
Especially where I think it comes up every time where like policy changes might happen within this building and then we don't know and then.
That happens on a daily basis.
Exactly. It's almost like this joke that if we
Just
laugh
quit
about
changing the
it.
policies, Julia.
Yeah.
Why you just,
Okay, when we figure it
just
out,
keep
we'll let
us-
you know.
sometimes
You
it
don't-
happens
you
on
don't
floors.
even wanna
It happens
get
on floors,
into
but then it gets to us.
Because it's all about me and my travel that just got rejected for a policy change that I wasn't aware of.
So
Yes,
we
there's a point.
appreciate that you, like, when we go to these audits and you can say, like, you can give us that feedback knowing that, we're not doing it maliciously to break a rule. It's, oh, we didn't know that was a new
Right.
rule or whatever. So we
Believe
do
me,
appreciate
we
that.
all feel bad about it. And we express our condolences in advance. Very much so. That's the one interesting thing about working here is all the changes that happen. You're not always up to date, just by trying really hard. Get it? Okay. Any other thoughts? All right. Let's move on to membership reporting. So we had a conversation at a meeting not too long ago. Do you remember what meeting that might have been?
Was it the last one?
I think it was. And I thought I brought that little, I did right here. So we talked to the directors recently about TSO membership reporting, trying to get them onto a timeline that worked for you all, worked for us, and works for them. And here's what they came up with. So for this next year, we will ask that, so let me, before I even give you the dates, let me step back and say the goal of this whole thing is to provide directors with a list of who has affiliated nationally and with the state in each LEA. Because some of their funding is dependent upon how many members they have and whether or not they have members. We will cut them off if they don't have a particular number of CTSOs, or we'll decrease their funding if they don't meet certain requirements when it comes to CTSO participation. So it's a big deal to them. So in order to help them understand early who got right on the ball and who hasn't, so they can go continue to work with those local advisors, as well as in the spring to understand who got on the ball and did what they were supposed to do and where they're still missing. And then to cut it off at a point in time that makes sense so that they're not just gaming the system to get money and actually not benefiting from CTSO participation. So there's a fine balance here, okay? So for the fall membership reporting, we're going to ask that you all provide information to us by November 15th of every year. Okay, that's the fall date. And that from there, we'll do our data matching and some of the things we have to do on our side, and the report will go out to the LEAs by December 1st. So that's our fall timeline. April 15th is the next due from you to us by April 15th. We will send it out to directors by May 1st. That gives them just a couple of weeks to get that final turnaround in. And I have down that we were going to make it an April 30th cutoff date. If they don't have their membership turned into nationals and paid for by April 30th, that's our cutoff. And I feel really positive about that, actually.
Our national organization is earlier than that. Is that okay?
So tell me more about what that means to you.
That means if they're not registered by March 1st, they are not considered, well, actually, they will take your money, but you can't be an active participant other than to show up.
Does anybody else
You
have a
can't
requirement?
compete, you can't run for office, you can't.
February 1.
February 1.
Because they can't complete our region competitions.
Oh, wow.
So this is just to compete and in competition. They can affiliate all the way through May 15th for us, but to compete in a competitive event, ours is February 1.
Ours is not until July 31st, so.
But in order to compete, right, they could still pay money after
Sure.
that.
And I don't know what the final, I'm sure it's like.
So if we said, for the benefit of the doubt, if we said April 30th to locals, you must be affiliated and paid by April 30th, or we're not going to count it as being a participant or a CTSO in that year. I can live with that number. Does that work for you guys? All right. Because here's what happens. After we send them the report on May 1st. Hold on, now I have to think about it.
Well, yeah, because if they get on
They're
their
not there.
teachers.
Yeah, and
I'd
then
say
they,
May 15th.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to be right.
That gives them 2 weeks to say, pay your dues.
Yeah, because they've got to have time to chase people.
Yeah.
15th.
May 15th is going to be our deadline for the USPE setting. their
So we
plan.
will send directors May 1st their reports, and they'll have till May 15th to affiliate.
And
by
then
the
by
end of
May 15th, if they cannot produce a record, or you all cannot produce a record and they cannot produce a check or a receipt of payment, then for our purposes and their funding, we will not count that.
It's so easy now because they can do it online. You know, before when you had to wait till a check got blah, 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 it's a whole different story.
Okay, so C is actually going to be different than I typed it. I did this when I was far away and I didn't have all my notes, so I was trying to do it by memory. We all know how bad Talia's memory is. So far so good, except for this one. USPU sends the final, so the final report from you guys will be June 1st. You will then clean it and send it out to the directors, and it is what it is by June. There's no arguing, no
No,
negotiation, no changes at that point.
it's June 15th.
June 15th. So That's what I have down, so that
Oh, that's what you had down.
advisors will give us the finals by June 1st and
Okay.
out to the
Are we considered advisors? Or advisors? So by June 1st, we've got another deadline.
Yeah, so your three deadlines, November 15th, April 15th, June 1st. So initial, middle, final.
We have never made them do it 3 times.
So
Is that
November
what
15th.
you want?
So how do we get our June report?
From the directors proving their problem.
So we make the changes on our end.
Mhm.
What if we require,
We'll sometimes call
that you'll do
like
with it?
Nikki Sue and say, did,
Yeah.
X
verify.
charter school really have 2 more
And they
additional
verify.
people? And they verify.
Good, all right, then let's take that out.
Okay, will you repeat that just one more time? Sorry, Talia.
I'd like to change it. I'd like to reserve the right to change my mind. All in favor? That can be in my Robert rules.
Numbers do work.
There are lots of meetings lately. All right, advisors, November 15th, directors, December 1st. Spring, advisors, April 15th, out to directors, May 1st. Final will go out to directors. Do you want June 1st or June 15th? What's the,
Doesn't matter because they don't get to change after that.
can we have it out to them by June 1st? I would rather have it June 1st.
I think we can do it.
Okay, June 1st to directors. That way they're mostly still around.
So Talia, does that mean by Monday you want our report?
Andrea?
Does that start this year?
Well, that's the thing. Their deadline used to be May 1st for this report that we're asking for them. Do you
Okay.
want them? That would be Monday.
I told my advisors, the ones, I sent an email, then I told them April 25th was our deadline. If I
Okay.
could wait until then. I think I haven't checked in 3 weeks.
And all
since I
of you
sent
do
that.
April 25th.
The deadline I gave our advisors was the 15th. I technically could do it by like the morning of the 16th.
5:59
let's do the
a.m. on the
25th.
5:59 a.m.
No Mountain Daylight Time. So I would say for this year, anytime between now and the 25th, if you could get Andrea the data, it will take us a couple weeks to clean it. We'll get it out to the directors and we'll just go from there. Next year, we'll follow that new schedule.
And are we still following the same format that we've done? Andrea?
Yeah, there, with that sample spreadsheet that's in the OneDrive, use that again. But, speaking of that, down, where is it on there? Yeah, number E there. Jeff wants to know how many of you could add SSIDs and or male, female to your membership record.
I can't do SSID. I have a membership number that's generated from my national organization, but I can't, and I can add male, female, but I can't add a social security.
You can do male, female though?
Ours can do male, female, but they can opt out.
Yeah, ours can too.
A lot of advisors opt out.
Ours is the same one.
Okay. If you can add that would help Jeff out a lot, he said.
Ask what?
The male, female.
Male,
So-
female, other.
And,
Just social security, did you mean
yeah,
school ID?
I had a student registered.
They're not student registered.
Yeah, but even school IDs, the national organization just generates it.
We don't collect that information.
okay. Yeah, if we can, I'll put that on the spreadsheet. If you can do it this year, great. If you can't, then that's okay.
Did you already do it?
No.
And I was
D, who assigns your chapter IDs?
Organization.
National.
All of it's national?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
We have an option to assign a state one, we haven't.
We don't care. We just need to know when you get a new chapter, that is very helpful for us to know who they are. Because sometimes when we get the data in, it'll say, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, and Jeff's like, I don't know who chapter 1, 2, 3, 4 is, and that's because we're a new chapter. And sometimes we'll find, they're the Moon chapter, that's FFA, and then we're like, what?
Moon Lake.
Moon Lake. Who is Moon Lake?
No one lives at Moon Lake.
No one,
except
there's
big,
not a
giant
high school called Moon Lake. So, because it will get it from the national, that like, well, that's Moon Lake. And we're like, we don't have a Moon Lake High School, so it took us a minute to find out who Moon Lake was. So if it's not tied to Riverton High School, then we need to know who Moon Lake is too, or whatever too. And
Altamont.
yeah, so
Will you send out that one link again? Because I don't see that on this.
One drive.
on the OneDrive.
Yeah.
On your shares, if you open shares, you don't have the CTSO file.
The CTSO resources, but it doesn't. have-
That's in the directors folder. It should be above that.
Joel, will you help Denise find the OneDrive?
But I can help. I can share it again. I will share it again with everybody.
Okay, what
Okay.
else do we have? Did you ask about going back?
I got a while ago, I asked the question for Jeff, how far can we go back in your data? So Decker responded with the current year +1, and FFA said back to 2014 they can go back for data, membership data. This is membership data. But does anybody know what theirs is besides those two?
That's why we can't go back for
I would have to just ask, but I could ask.
The 2013.
And see.
Uh-huh.
Actually, this was Wendy that had this question, and she was wondering, the most she would go back is 5 years, but she was wondering what the availability was of 5 years on membership data nationally.
And let me tell you why we're asking, because we want to start doing, once we can get this into our system and look at student level data, we want to go back and do some data analysis. We want to look at kids who are participating in CTSOs. Does it affect their graduation rate? Does it affect their concentrator and completer status? Does it affect lots of different things? We want to be able to really dig down into what's happening with CTSO students, but until we got some, a longitudinal look at it.
So what
know
do you
it's
want? Do you
probably
want
true.
nationals or just Utah? Because we've
We
said
want
Utah.
All we can look at is Utah data. So the
Yeah, it's just Utah.
Isn't that what we've been sending you every year?
I think I
Yeah,
have the
but we
Excel
don't have
sheets.
SSIDs, and so we would have to go back to your names with those at our level. Because in the old days before with TC, you guys just said we have 10 members at that. We didn't have, it wasn't student data. So you would probably have to go back to nationals. That's why we're asking on the national level.
But see, they don't use the SSIDs. They generated their own.
Right.
I know, but they
Go
could
in.
generate you
Oh.
a Utah match with names and high schools and chapter IDs and stuff for how long?
Okay.
Does that make sense now? Okay.
So in the olden days, you just said at Alta High School, you have 10 members. Now you're saying at Alta High School, you have 10 members and here are their names and some basic information about them. Now we can take those names and basic information and match them to their school and their UTREX record and figure out who those students are and a whole bunch of
And then
information
we can
about
know
them.
their graduation rate and their completer rates and
No, I think if I email Sandra, they give me the data. I know they just transferred to your online system, so I don't have access to the online system of Utah except for 1 year ago because it came out last year. But I'll bet if I emailed them, I could get it. How far back do you want to go?
Parking space.
5 years.
5 years?
that's what we're hoping for is 5 years. But
Or are you wanting us to ask our national organizations?
if you can go back 5 years for membership record.
And get student level data for membership.
So you would have to be their, at least your chapter ID and the student's first and last name minimum. If we can do more than that, but we would want more, especially like if they're male, female, if we can get that, that would help us a lot with matching. Because sometimes there's 2 Sue Smiths in the same school and one was in FFA and one wasn't, for example, and that we would need to know something else more to try to figure out which Sue Smith it was, if that makes sense. So that's why Jeff needs a little bit more data if he can get it.
When do you want us to send you those? Just as soon as we can?
Yeah, I mean, like maybe over the summer when you guys have more free time or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
If that's
nothing on your plate
possible.
right
I know national data is pretty busy right now, but I could do it. Maybe the LTI, can we bring it up as an LTI, or one of our meeting things and talk about it?
Yeah,
Maybe
maybe
it's all
we can
email
talk
or-
about it at LTI.
maybe we'll-
If you guys can find out what data you can get by LTI, let's do that as a due date. And that would be helpful. And just let me know at LTI. That would be great.
But Andrea, like for me, I can download it like today. Do you want them in like an Excel file? Do
That'd
you
be
want
great.
them-
Yeah,
You're gonna be big Excel files.
Yeah, that's fine. We can put them in Move It if we need to.
So
Or you could add them to the OneDrive. We could do it that way and transfer it that, well, if it's student data, we probably need to do it and Move It, you know.
So Wendy just reminded me, do you all know Wendy Morton? Wendy, y'all, I talk like I'm from the South when I can.
Yeah.
Do all y'all know who Wendy Morton is?
Yes.
I was just with my Southern friends this week. Phyllis George is my favorite. Anyway,
It's George.
yeah, do you know Phyllis? Yes. Oh, that's what I meant. Phyllis Johnson. Who's Phyllis George?
It's your other friend down there. The orange juice lady.
Are you naming it? Wow. I don't even know. I swear I know it's Phyllis George.
I wonder who she is.
I wonder who she is.
George is,
All right. My roommate in college was Rachel George. Maybe I just combined them. Okay.
She who rides with you in the carpool lane.
Yes. In my head. Okay. Anyway, Phyllis Johnson, my friend from Georgia, who I apparently don't know as well as I thought I did. So Wendy, I know her name, Wendy Morton, just reminded me that one of the things as we move into Perkins 5, one of the things that we're talking about, because we have for our performance measures for Perkins, with Perkins 5, we have some options for data measures, performance measures. And one of the things we're talking about maybe doing, and other states are looking at as well, is membership in CTSOs as a quality measure. So, yeah, so what we put in as a performance indicator for Perkins 5 will help drive some of what LEAs do, because they're now going to have to report on it and take a look at it. It will also be an issue for equity and making sure that we are looking at equity when it comes to CTSOs. And we'll talk about school fees. It's not on my list, but we probably should. We only have 45 minutes. We have a lot to do.
Yeah.
If it doesn't come up here, it'll come up in the later meeting. But that's one of the things we're talking about is putting a CTSO. So the more data you can get us, at least one more year. We have last year's, we'll have this year's. You can go back, this is 18, 19, 17, 18, 16, 17 school year at a minimum, and get us that data from your national offices. That would be helpful for us to establish a baseline. Yeah, does that make sense? So at least that much. If you can go back a couple more years, that would be even better. But as we look at putting that in as a performance measure.
So did this come back when he said that Susan might already have them.
Not at a student level.
Individual student level, so
Finding
by
names.
with their membership number, their name,
We have
chapter
to.
number, right, all that stuff. Because we have to identify if the student concentrated in a pathway, we have to identify if they completed a pathway, if they're a participant in a pathway, and then we look at how that student's membership as well as any special population categories. So you'll send out an email.
Andrea?
Togo.edu.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Can't find on there too.
Oh,
Specific.
Well, they do it. They have an email on your user. And so it's easy to
Okay.
just say opt out on all and just submit it. That's the only thing. Most of, with the data, most
You're getting access to OneDrive now.
Let me just hit a couple of other things really quick because we need to go back up and talk about some legislative changes. So, are we all ready to move along?
require it. It's just the news.
Freaking some.
It's like,
Except for Brecken and John, we're all ready to move along. Okay.
hey, hold on one sec. Okay, you may proceed now.
All right. Let's jump down to national conferences really quickly. Remember that only one approved CTE school, no, I read that wrong. Sorry, little sleep, more sleep than me, but still a little sleep. Remember that only approved CTE schools can receive state funds for national travel. So what that means to all of you is currently, this may change in the future, we have one school district that's teetering on the edge of not being an approved CTE program because they don't meet minimum standards, minimum quality. And you all probably have membership from some charter schools that are not approved, state-approved, USBE-approved CTE charter schools.
How would we know that?
How would we know that?
You're just supposed to know. We can give you a list. So Andrea can send you an annual
$5.
list.
$5.
$5. It's $5.
Use your debit to get rewards.
I take Venmo, PayPal, Square.
Venmo. No Venmo.
Franklin's good.
No Venmo. I have a Lime scooter account. Okay. And I just signed up for Uber this week. Yes, that's true.
Wow.
I Ubered twice all by myself. I
It
had
takes
to
to the
find
airport
it.
from here.
I know.
Yeah.
I've been complaining about that. So Wendy, what's your name? Andrea will send you out a list. Phyllis George. Who the heck is Phyllis George? I know it's Phyllis George.
She's a former Miss America. She is.
Phyllis George.
Phyllis George was a former Miss America from many years ago.
Yeah.
She was a sportscaster.
Thank you. She and I are like this.
She had her legs insured for $1 million.
I thought that was very
That's
true.
true. That was Mary Hart, you're right. Mary Hart.
Oh,
But
that's.
it was the same kind of thing. Anyway. That's what Phyllis George was.
I feel much better.
Nothing
about
but the
myself.
Phyllis Airport, Phyllis Johnson.
Sprechen Higgins. All right, back to it. Andrea will send you a list of all those districts and charters that are approved. Anyone who is not an approved district or charter at our office is not eligible for state CTE dollars, which is where this comes, okay?
I'm soon to get that list.
Question for you, sorry.
They're doing national registration right now.
Our registration's like, we go to
They
nationals.
can
in
still
2
go,
weeks,
they just can't get the scholarship.
And I've already charged $300. Already gone
So,
through the system.
so are you
Do I
nervous
just-
about a charter school?
Yeah, we've got a few charter schools,
Do you
yeah.
need them?
AISU,
They're approved,
mostly.
AISU of Murray.
they're approved this year.
Salt Lake
Terra
County.
Academy,
They're approved this year.
Is that Terra Academy
Terra Academy now.
is not innovations.
Innovations
Yes.
is. Innovations, wait, who's Innovations?
Weaver. No.
Innovations.
Weaver Innovations is part of the district.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Summit Track.
Summit Academy.
Approved. Summit is approved.
Rockwell
Approved. Approved.
and the American Academy of Innovation.
Approved.
Itinerant.
Approved.
American Prep is in West Jordan.
And then you already said.
And so,
American Prep is in West Jordan?
Yes.
American Leadership Academy.
Yeah.
Academy?
APA?
I'm pretty sure.
East Hollywood High School.
Approved. Yes, approved. East Hollywood. East Hollywood is.
That's the early college.
That's itinerant. Itinerant is the.
RSL Academy.
No, there's 6 early college.
Oh, really? Oh, I know it is. Because it's on the list.
Yeah.
There you go. I will read you off the list.
Okay, we're good.
How about the ones that are
No, I
not?
think we're good.
Where the heck did you set that out?
Because I'm doing CTE stuff right now.
But that's not the ones that applied, that's not the ones that applied this year. There's some that are not on that list.
But we
Well, I
haven't-
can give you majority.
Right?
Yes, we'll take them.
Go
American Academy of Innovation, American International School of Utah,
for the time being.
American Leadership Academy, American Prep Academy, Academy for Math, Engineering, and Science, Beehive Science and Technology Academy,
So long.
East Hollywood High, Fast Forward Charter High School, Freedom Prep Academy, Intech Collegiate High School, Itineris, Merritt College Prep Academy, Northern Utah Academy of Math, Engineering, and Science, aka New Ames, Providence Hall, Real Academy, Roots Charter High School, Utah Virtual Academy, Spectrum Academy, Success Academy, Summit Academy High School, Vanguard, Wasatch School District. That's it on my list right now.
That was helpful. Thank you.
That's why,
That includes the ones we approved this year.
oh, it does? My name is Ashley and I like to be prepared.
She was okay. Really quickly, I know there's going to be an issue that comes up. Richard, I've seen the emails. I'm sure it will come up in the meeting later today around the whole, paying. Anyway, we'll talk about that during the later meeting.
Okay.
But can students compete in more than one event at nationals?
Well, sort of. They can, they can compete in one event, but any of the recognition events. But the recognition events don't send them to nationals.
One event and one event, like a local chapter annual service project, a chapter project, they can do that.
That's UCLA?
Yes, competitive events as far as like contests go, only one, but then awards that they may need to be interviewed for, yes.
TSA?
Don't know.
So we'll have to get that.
Do we pay scholarship?
I'll
for the
ask.
award? Do we pay scholarship for the awards?
A scholarship,
So the national travel,
just the
$300.
travel money. If they're finalists in the interviews for the award, yeah.
How about for HOSA? If they're a recognition award, do we pay the $300?
Because anybody could be like a Barbara James service.
If they're, yeah, I mean, it's not really a recognition, so if they're in a chapter event, yes.
And for ours, we're talking like the final four in the whole country. Like they're not just like anybody can go. It's like one, you know.
Have Who's Who, which is a recognition only, and it's funded.
But only to one person for that.
Correct, only one.
That answers your questions. Okay. All right, let's jump back up. We've got just a little time left. Let's talk about some legislative changes. So if y'all are watching along, my friend Phyllis George and I, if y'all are watching along for the legislative session, you may or may not have picked up a change, probably not because it wasn't spelled out this way, in how we're going to financially do CTSOs. And in addition, there are some changes happening at the national level that I want to make sure I talk about before we're done with this discussion. So if you pay attention, and I hope you don't because it's way more detailed than you probably care about, but the way that we've always done CTSO management in our state CTSO budget, this is not organization budgets, right? But the budgets that the directors deal with. In the past, let me go back and give you a CT funding 101. Remember there is Perkins, right? We're up to about $15 million in Perkins now for the state of Utah. But in state CT funding, we're up at over $100 million now that comes here and then flows out to the LEAs. Historically, one of those columns on the big spreadsheet, a way that LEAs can earn some of that money is by participation in CTSOs. What we've always done is sent that money out to them because we were never allowed to keep money here or to receive money here. So all the money goes out to the LEAs in that column for participation in CTSOs. And then through Bridgerland, we prepared a budget, sent it up to Bridgerland and said, here's how much each LEA, based on their relative proportion of student participants in CTSOs, here's how much they owe back to fund the statewide management of CTSOs. That includes all of your salaries and your state staff. That includes national travel dollars, LTI, the couple thousand that we budgeted there, just some very minimal kinds of things. We've had to use Bridgerland as a fiscal agent for many, many years because in our office, we're not allowed to receive money in. So what we asked this year, and I'm surprised that we got it so quickly, but we asked when he was great about going down and working with financial operations, is the ability to withhold money off the top here in our office so that we no longer have to send the money out to the LEAs and then ask for a portion of it back. So the legislature approved that, and we now are able to have money here at our office to pay those bills, your contracts, LTI, some of the organizational things that we've never been able to do before. So we will end our fiscal arrangement with Bridgerland Technology College. They're aware. We'll end that at the end of this fiscal year. So that means everything that you're used to doing through Bridgerland will now come through us.
That means like the $300 stipend for the workplace.
For the national travel.
Right, and they know that. So FY19 will finish out. So any travel that's going on through the end of FY19 will all be done through Bridgerland. FY19, all through Bridgerland. Okay, so your national travel this summer, your final payouts from your contracts, all of that will come through Bridge and Land. Starting FY20, everything will now be internal. Okay, what questions do you have so far?
When you say FY, is that January?
July 1 to
July
June
1.
30.
I mean, what does it change?
Oh, that's where we're coming, but no questions about what I just said.
It's probably changed, so
So what ended up happening is that we ended up getting some money that was in addition to our CT add-on allocation. So this actually ends up being some new money, not a cost to the LEAs any longer. So what will happen is the LEAs will now be able to earn their amount 1%. Whenever I talk too much, I always start coughing. So this is a sign of talking too much. So the LEAs will still earn their 1% of add-on dollars back to their monthly allocations, their regular financial allocations based on their CTSO participation. The change for them is they no longer will get billed and have to send some of that money back. They get to keep it all. Okay, so that's a good thing. They'll be happy about that. But what this does is give us a whole bunch of money that we haven't had before to be able to do some really cool things. So I think you all grabbed a budget from this table. Let me walk you through some ideas that we have. So if you look at the front page, the state dollars, you'll see it's just under $1 million. Historically, we've been in the 600,000. So this is a significant increase for us. It is now money that comes to our office. It's not LEA money any longer. So we will continue to share budgets, but the directors will no longer have to approve it because it's no longer their money. Okay? It's our money. We will always be transparent. We will show budgets and show how we're spending. In addition, a big change that happened this year is Perkins 5. Perkins 4 was fairly restrictive in what you could use Perkins dollars for regarding CTSOs. Perkins 5 is not. So Perkins 5 opens the door. And Wendy will tell us what that exemption is. No, when Perkins 6 comes out. Okay. I will be gone.
So memberships. So student memberships. If the membership belongs to the individual student, it cannot be paid for. If the membership belongs to the school or the LEA and will continue on regardless of which students are in membership, then it can be paid for with.
Oh, okay.
I don't understand.
So there's some of you, some organizations that have a membership fee where they say for the first 150 students, it's X dollars. That membership belongs to the school. So when the student leaves the school and goes to a new school, they don't keep their membership in the other chapter. That membership belongs to the school. That is okay to pay for membership with Perkins. Now, again, it depends on so many things, like the plan, their budget, what they plan to do with those funds originally, right? There's a whole bunch of other pieces, but it is allowable if the membership belongs to school. So it would be the same for advisors. They cannot pay for an advisor membership unless it belongs to school, not the individual advisor. So if it's for an individual, they have to use other funds or the person has to pay themselves.
So if we have a new policy coming with our junior highs that says if you pay $250, you can affiliate as many members as you want.
Transfer it to another student membership.
Yeah, you can.
No, that's what
Oh,
you said.
I'm
They
sorry.
could.
Yeah, they could.
Yes.
You can.
Okay.
If it's, you have to affiliate each student individually.
Yes. Okay, so they still have to affiliate each student individually, but that $250 is going to cover as many.
Okay, so let me say it
It
differently.
Okay, so it depends. Is this membership a school membership or is it a student membership?
Well, they're telling school, it's called the middle school level membership is what it is, and they're telling like Belleville Junior High.
So say a kid affiliates with Rocky Mountain Junior High
Okay.
under that scenario, and then they move to Roy Junior High. Same district, different school, different chapter. And do they lose their membership and now Roy High has to affiliate, Roy
No,
Junior
they
High
don't.
has to affiliate?
Not if they're in, they have to be in that same program. Does that make sense? The $250. You see what I'm asking though?
Here's what I'm gonna ask you. For $250, they can have as many members as they want.
That is correct.
So
At the junior
at the junior high level, that's a school membership because there's, yeah.
They still have to, they still have to tell nationals who's affiliated, so when you get names.
It might not be. Because if the membership, if they're saying $250 and you can upload each kid, but that membership still belongs to that kid. That membership is got students and it belongs to them, then no.
So is there
I don't think
there's an
scenario.
instance in this state that anybody's not a student affiliated and it's their membership. So
Okay, especially considering our membership
Then-
reports
then-
requires. Okay, so then it is.
Okay. So I think what we should say then for Utah purposes is Perkins cannot pay for membership fees.
But you
But
should
it's,
say,
but now it is more open though, they can help pay for travel, potentially, they can help pay for conference registrations, they
Yeah.
can help pay for
Yeah.
jackets, Skills USA, jackets at a school that can stay there and be used by multiple people.
Those are the questions about.
Talk about supplanting our.
Yeah,
That's good.
Then a school can have a whole cell. I'm so proud, Erin.
That's right.
So
That's right.
proud.
Did Bruceine scare you straight?
Scared straight.
Basically, everybody will belong to the school, and that's the easiest way to, say it. Yeah. And again, it's based on the director's
Individual can't benefit
budget,
directly.
all of the above, right?
So is this something you're telling directors also?
Yeah, they'll know.
Because we're in the same situation, all of our participants have to have a jacket at our national conference, so that would be the same thing.
And remember, it can't then belong to that student.
No,
Right.
it belongs to
Right.
the school.
And if the jacket get lost, you have to have due diligence in finding it and attach that documentation. Listen,
Do a whole police report.
Dude, don't try to show up to my.
You have to have a police report. Whoever.
Okay. Where are we going? How do we get on that topic?
100 million, or about 600. So it's good, I think.
Oh, not.
So we're gonna say in Utah, membership cannot be paid using Perkins funds
The Perkins can be used for other CTSO expenditures
that belong to
more
the
than,
school.
more than they have in the past. Yes.
Cool.
So normally we pull $52,500 out of Perkins to help supplement, not supplant, to help supplement CTSO expenditures. Look at me. Like I used to do Perkins in the way far distant past. Every once in a while. 55. And I've now forgotten all of it because you know it. 56,000 is now what I'm proposing to take out of Perkins. So a small increase. When you wanted me to take more, I can't spend what I have, so I can't really justify in my head taking more. But remember, this budget now no longer has to be approved. So as we go through and get feedback today from the districts, we might come up with some additional thoughts about how to spend some of this money. So you will see, flip to the last page really quickly. What I'm proposing is a slight increase for each CTSO in terms of state management costs. You've been just around, go ahead, Richard.
Very quickly, this says $400, is that right? That's
Hold
a
on,
change?
I'm not there yet.
Oh, I thought,
Hold on, we're done, I know, we're done on secondary management
Okay,
costs,
sorry.
which is the first line, okay? So you've been just under $40,000 for each CTSO for management. I'm proposing, I like round numbers, $39,158.50. It just makes me crazy from a financial point of view. So a round number, $45,000. Look at those zeros all in a row right there, makes my little heart happy. So what I've done, don't get too excited because as is my practice in the past, whenever we make an increase on this page, I just lump it into the state advisor's salary. Okay, so don't get too excited, that may not be your actual end salary. That's where I put it so I can get rid of it and the numbers add up. Okay, we will still work with you and your specialist to decide how that money will actually be allocated. Okay, so this document is not a final document. I know you'll make changes, you'll move the money around a little bit. What we'll do now that federal dollars don't have to be tied to post-secondary is we're just taking of that 56,000, 7,000 to each organization out of Perkins to help supplement those. Okay. So questions about secondary management costs? All right. As Richard quickly pointed out, we always tell it's important. I'm glad it wasn't your own salary that went to students. As is our practice, we give money to first place winners and state officers who are going to nationals. This is a proposal, and this is where I will seek guidance from our directors that come this afternoon. I have messed around a lot with these numbers. We've been doing $300. I went all the way up to 5. Wendy was like, that may not be such a good idea. I said, okay, how about 4?
Right, sustainability. For me, it's hard for us to sustain that ongoing side.
And that's really the question even at 400. This may not be a number that we can sustain forever. So is it better to do it for a little while and then cut back? Or is it better to just keep everybody lower and not? And that's what we'll ask the directors for some feedback
I think
about.
people always get upset if you take money away.
I agree with you.
So I think if
Steady
if it's a worry that it's going to go down, maybe go up to 350, and then if we can go up.
199.
I
have
an
extra
differing opinion. From my perspective, it's not my money. So if I tell them,
It's
last
free
year
money.
you got
That's true.
400, but now the state can only do 350, they have to deal with that. Like, I would
Yeah.
rather give it to them while we can and then take it back and say, the state, money was cut from them and they can't fund us, so we're going back down to 350. I think it's okay. But I would rather be able to say, we are going up to 400 at least this year. It may go back down in the future. I think everyone would be thrilled.
We'll get guidance from the directors and
Okay.
see what they have.
I changed my opinion.
I'm an optimist.
Would it be really
I'd
messy
like
to
to
do
just
it on the
go
years that
350
like
and then go longer.
it's more expensive to travel wherever you're going?
Oh,
What if you
yeah,
did
if
it
you're
that way?
across the country rather
Yeah.
than this side.
Yeah, like you set some guidance that way?
Yeah,
No,
but it's
too
just,
hard,
it's
too
too
hard,
much,
too messy.
it's too much,
Messy.
too much follow-up. It's
Sure,
easy to say
sure.
across the board, it's the same.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so this is a
Thank you.
discussion we'll have with the directors. We'll get some guidance and feedback. We'll make a final decision. Don't leave this room and say that we're funding at $400. That's not a demonstration.
Twitter.
No.
And that
All social
Did
media
you
is
sign up for an account?
but
Says
that
that.
would be a change for next year, not
Correct.
anything right now.
That's
Yes.
It's not, we don't even have the money till after July 1.
About the
I was gonna
7,000.
say, just as another positive outlook on
Not till
that,
after July.
even if you did have to eventually take it away, sometimes I think it's a nice little boost of confidence and support for education. They were, the legislature does care about us. The state board does care about us. It's just kind of like a nice little positive move. They're doing the best they can this year. Your kids are gonna get an extra $100. It's not a forever thing. Our $300 wasn't always a forever thing, right? It could be taken away at any time. But I'm just saying sometimes it's nice to
Sometimes it's in how you message it, and you would have to have your message very clear so that it was.
So I think it's important for your boards to understand that more than.
But it's not a done deal.
And the advisors.
Yeah, and your advisors.
We will give you more follow-up and final decisions after today. Okay, but that is something we're going to ask for information about. Just as a reminder, we fund based on 5-year historical high, which we keep track of. So that's how those budgeted numbers are there, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? Reserve. I always like to keep a bit of a reserve, $30,000. Notice the next line. LTI, $20,000. Anybody excited about that?
Woo, ice cream. That's where I am.
Oh, we don't get to go.
I think that is so great.
Korean.
Huge expense.
So again, this starts
for next
July
year.
1.
Sorry, not this
Not this year, but that would start July 1. Okay?
What's it this
They're
year?
reserving the whole hotel.
Andrea?
150 for kids
150.
and 2 if you share, or 250
Well-
if you don't.
The budget though.
The budget
What was the budget this year?
as compared to 20,000 for next year. What's the budgeted amount this year?
Oh, about that. That's about what it costs. But from year to year.
Would be paid. Never mind.
No, I mean, no, in our budget last year, we have $5,000 that came from us. And that you guys were helping pay for the other 15.
And you're saying you're now gonna go give us 20
Now
instead
you're
of
gonna
5?
fund the whole thing.
That's a
So-
lot.
We're funding the whole thing.
Thanks.
Wow.
With
Well,
one exception.
with one exception.
One exception. But before I get to that exception, let me ask this question. How many of you are charging your students $150? Or how many of you pay it out of organization fees? Organization fees, give me a raise of hands. So you charge a little bit of it.
Yeah.
How about TSA, do you know? Okay. Way to step in for Mike.
I know.
Any answer?
I emailed him.
I don't know. It's hard.
Ask me.
All right, so
Unless their contract as a student officer.
You know, it's not mandatory.
It is part of their
It is.
contract and they still have to pay $25.
so does that make you feel better?
Should we not be charging? Is that what you're saying?
Well, Wendy's saying that we shouldn't be charging.
I think if it's part of the expectation, you shouldn't require.
That's where we.
Well, I would agree too.
Our board decided.
For us, it's like, they put so much time and effort, don't want to charge them.
So what we're looking at and what I have to do, because this is now internal expense, is if you want meals, if you want breakfast and lunch every day that you're there, we have to charge a fee, cover the meals in order to be approved to buy meals. So that would be about $50. And that's the only way I can get meals covered for you.
Per person.
That's great.
Per
That's
person.
like our internal policy problem.
However, there is a likelihood that I can give you that money. I have to give it to you and then you have to give it back to me. Hey. Welcome to.
We're used to that.
Right.
And there's a form for that, several forms. So hopefully that will be a great change. Andrea and I talked this morning for next year, like June 2020, about bringing LTI back along the Wasatch Front somewhere. We brainstormed, she's gonna check a few places to see if we can get approved for different places.
Go back to a hotel. I mean, not hard.
Nice.
All right,
Nobody
so
finds
that's
it.
LTI. Good to move on.
Business deals on
Educators
the
Rising.
cemetery.
So we had a weird question come up from some teachers. Let me explain, and Lola, you and I need to have a conversation before you go to NOSA Facts. We had a weird question from some teachers about Educators Rising. Let me remind you all how CTSOs work. So the federal department has built and maintained a massive list. Hi, Rod.
Hello.
We're finishing up our sharing, advisor sharing. We'll be starting the official meeting in just
About 15 minutes. Okay, yeah, so go ahead and put your phone on mute, Rod. Okay, so the Federal Department of Education Division of Office of Career Technical and Adult Education, OCTE, specifically the Division of Applied Technology Education, I think they're so called. They put together a national list of those who they consider to be approved CTSOs. There are 10 of them. All of you all, plus Educators Rising, plus BPA. I think that's it, right? Does that sound right to everybody? Am I missing somebody? I think that's it. So we've always followed the policy that if it's on the Federal Department of Education's list, then they are a recognized CTSO. If it's not, they're not, right? Some things are changing, and it is possible, again, do not go out and tweet this. No social media sharing, no big conversations, but it is possible, rumor has it, that the Federal Department of Education may take that list offline and not stay in the business of determining or approving CTSOs anymore. Problem for me, right? Because we know that there are lots of people out there wanting to get into the party, right?
Too many.
So what we've asked my national organization to do is to come up with a list of criteria for the states to use as they choose, that here are the quality standards for a CTSO. If this really goes down and it happens this way, we will follow that list, make our own policy about what it takes to be a CTSO in the state of Utah. We will try to maintain high rigor Leadership is an important piece of that, as well as the competition. But we will have a Utah approved list if this is the way that it really goes. And we will write it into our Pekin State Plan, which will make it very lovely, actually, because then we can stand by it, right? So that's a bigger conversation for another day. But we are continuing with our plan as we develop our education pathway to bring Educators Rising into the state. So we've been working with UEA on this. They believe they have some money to help get Educators Rising started in the state of Utah from an organization perspective. But I have budgeted some money to help get it started if we need to use that. My anticipation is that we will contract with one or more people, kind of get it started. If we have 100 people at that first conference, I'm going to be really excited. Ashley and I will be going to the National Educators Rising Conference in June, if she gets her travel approved. I have airfare.
You also have a bigger.
But Ashley and I will be going. We're going to try and make some connections, really see if we can get this off the ground. A lot of people excited. It's already happening in Utah. We're just not doing it in Oregon. So that's why you see that on the list. Now, you also notice $222,000 in the other category. One of the things that we'll talk to directors about today are some other ideas about how to use some of this money. That might include some small grants to help LEAs with very specific criteria about who those LEAs could be. Things like rural schools, necessarily small schools, schools with new programs trying to get something off the ground. You might be able to allow them to apply for some grants to assist with transportation or some other things, right, to help them get something off the ground. It could be that we continue to increase and maintain the national travel money higher. Here's one of the things we wanted to talk really quickly about, CTSO liability insurance. Really quickly, I know that you all have policies. What I need to know is how much you're paying for those policies. And we will need copies of those. If you want to send them to us electronically, send them to Andrea. That would be great. If you printed the full 50 pages, that would be fine too. All right, so give me a holy crap.
More than
Wow,
50
like,
I was gonna say, really bad.
Double-sided.
He's more protected than I am, so.
I don't want to know. All right, so let's have a quick list of dollar amounts. How much do you pay for Skills USA?
$7,915.95
Annually? How much?
annually.
Say that again, 7.
Wait, who can pay that?
7915.95.
How much is it covered?
Double, yeah.
Quantity, like dollar amount?
What are the coverages?
What are the coverages?
Refer to that.
We're gonna get to keep that?
Is that our
Yeah,
copy
this
or
is
do you want me
yours.
to
We
keep a
just
copy?
pay per participant at a conference.
Sorry about the binder, it's only one I
That's
had
okay.
available.
Well, that's,
So you, it's not an annual policy, you do it event by event. And how much per student?
$1.50.
And so you do fall leadership, state conference, national conference.
I don't do national conference because I figured that they're part of the districts and the national people cover it.
Okay, so we gotta increase your liability coverage. TSA?
We have liability insurance through NPCA, $4,750. I don't know what the coverage is.
Can you ask Mike to get us a copy of the
Yeah,
policy?
it's a book like that.
Okay, we have
I can send it to you
$200
electronically if you
for
want.
automobile liability.
I can
Just
scan
wants
it.
to keep that copy annually, and then $350 for directors and officer liability, but for some reason they don't send me a declaration sheet.
How much is your director's insurance?
The board of directors and officers liability is $350 a year.
But how much does it cover
Um,
per
that,
incident?
let me see. 1 million retention. 1,000 each chapter would have its own limit in retention. Directors and officers, including practices liability, so 1 million. But I,
Cheaper than mine.
yeah. That's all I know.
Did you say we can't keep this one?
Because I'll get a new one because we're paying.
All right, SCCLA,
We're $851 yearly and we're the same.
$851.
$851. And same board of directors, state officers. I'll email it to Andrew, 32 pages.
So you only do board of directors insurance?
And state officers.
Don't have any insurance for board of directors.
We don't.
Or state officers.
But other liability
We
insurance.
don't carry any liability
Okay.
insurance.
I set this on that somewhere.
That's what I figured. Actually, I asked Buddy's meeting and he said that historically, it's always been, everything is optional, so that it has fallen under the district's risk management. To let their kids go, it should fall under their insurance guidance. Guidance?
Tradition?
That, Buddy told me that that's what has been in the past, but he said to ask if that's okay.
So we have two policies. We have a director's and officer's liability in $1 million policy at $703 per year. And then we also have a general liability policy. So it's limits $1 million each occurrence, $2 million general aggregate with sublimits, including improper sexual conduct liability with limits of $1 million each claim, and general aggregate along with terms, conditions, and exclusions. So that's $1,700. So we spend $2,400 total per year.
So Richard, is your policy through National Skills USA or did you go out on your own?
No,
That's
it's
from the
NPICA.
MPECA or
Who's
whatever.
yours from?
I'll stay. You're in good hands.
Susan Smith,
Jake from State Farm.
Phyllis George. It's Beehive Insurance. I can send you their contact if you want.
Yes.
Well, no, don't do anything yet. Because here's the message in the whole thing. It is possible that we will establish a minimum liability policy standards for all of you and then cover the cost for you.
That would be
That is
really,
possible.
really.
You're welcome.
Thank
I'll
you.
expect hugs around there.
Okay, we're kind of, some questions have been brought up about travel, where it's like, for our national travel, does the insurance always go on the LEA for travel for students and not on us? Because we talked about buying extra travel insurance.
So we're going to need to
as
get some
part
guidance
of-
on this.
Okay.
So I can't answer the questions. Historically, students, the first line of defense is always the LEA.
Okay.
Right? Because those students belong to them. What I envision your liability coverage as is above and beyond. Because you know how lawsuits work. They'll name the district, they'll name the school, they will also name you all, they will also name us, they will name everybody. So my belief is this sort of a policy is to cover that piece of it, not that individual student necessarily.
Add one. So part of the reason for this discussion and for us covering that cost is because with us not using Bridgerland, we are going to have to create contracts with all of you that look a little different and smell a little different than the current one. And our office has some minimum requirements for contract work, which includes minimum amounts of liability insurance. And depending on what they say based on what you currently have, what they want for you as an individual versus the organization, maybe two different things. I don't really know till they sit down and we look at everything. So we assume that there's going to be some additional costs, one possibly to you as the contractee personally, and one to the agreement that we may have. This is more information we've discussed, but more that the agreement that we will have to put into place with your organization in order to facilitate the national travel. We're going to have an agreement with the organization as well as the contracted people for these positions. And those two things may have some additional liability insurance requirements.
So let's move on to that really quickly. I don't have answers yet about liability insurance. It's just something we're talking about, being able to cover, make sure that you all have the right minimums, and that we take care of that out of this money for you. So let's go to that contracting piece. Means that now you will not be paid through Bridgerland any longer, starting July 1. You will be paid out of our office. We have to follow the rules and regulations, and my specialist should be snickering behind their faces and their hands. You have to follow the rules and policies around contracting. So anyone over, when you jump in, anyone over $10,000 or over will have to have a contract.
Everyone will have a contract of some sort.
That is true. That is true. It's the type of contract.
Yes.
And the depth in which we have to go to get that contract put in place. So one of the things that you'll want to each do, and for your state staff as well, Anybody who appears on that little third page blue sheet right there, you'll want to make sure they have updated resumes ready to go. As we work through over the next weeks, trying to figure out the process and get it into place so we're ready for July 1. At minimum, everyone on that list or everyone that you will have moving forward on that list needs to reapply for their job. Okay? So make sure you have a resume updated, ready to go. Good luck to all of you. I hope the best for you.
Here,
And so we will be looking at how to put that in place
I need to read it.
and what that looks like. We will also be establishing what we lovingly refer to as an IAA, interagency agreement, similar to like a memorandum of understanding. It's an agreement between our office and your organizations with specific requirements, things that we will do for you, things that you will do for us. And that will have to be signed and approved by the board and put into place so that you can receive money, is what you just talked about, for national travel, LTI, et cetera, et cetera.
Done by the board, you mean this board, not
Signed by the board. Do you want to talk more about that?
Sorry, well, somebody in your organization with signature authority will have to sign it.
Contract.
The IAA,
Oh, IAA.
right? And our board signs it. So, and depending on that dollar amount, then depends on so many things.
Right.
There's just different thresholds.
So won't that dollar amount be 45,000?
No.
Because there will be national
Being
travel.
individual?
It'll be
Oh,
individual with
include,
each
yeah.
organization. It will include the blue sheet on the budget. It will include 45,000. It will include national travel monies. It will include potentially LTI money that we will give to you. It could include liability insurance.
This one will be the one that's contracted with the individual, it's not with the
Correct.
organization.
Correct.
And taxes. will
Oh, you're
not
right.
be withheld.
So hold on, let's come back to that in a second. The IAA will also cover, hold on, the IAA will also cover things like an annual audit requirement. So that you're all working with auditors, outside agencies, to conduct a fiscal audit annually. That's one of the things that will be on there. Also included, you're gonna love this one, and attendance at these sorts of meetings. Not be optional, be required, because this is our opportunity to meet with directors and for us to get feedback, share information. Will not be optional unless you're dying or a family member is deathly ill, or you're on jury duty and can bring me proof and a cookie. But it is a requirement that if you're going to be running these organizations, our expectation is that you're here and that you're participating in the meetings as appropriate. So that sort of expectation will go in. LTI, the participation at LTI will be a requirement. So we'll be building in that list of expectations as we develop this out. And that will go through each of you. So Wendy just reminded me that the salaries of the blue sheet, third page, that is not part of the IAA. Those will be individual contracts with each person. Okay, so we won't just be paying a lump sum to all of you and then you get to distribute. The state staff will be contracted employees through our office. Yes, and they will get 1099s.
Based on dollar amounts, based on dollar amounts. So basically, we have to show, in the process of doing a contract, we have to show that you're the most qualified applicant. Okay? So we've interviewed all of you. That gives us some historical sort of information. You guys have had these positions, some of you, for a while, so that gives you some additional information, right, that you can add to an application process. But for procurement processes, especially anyone above $10,000, it was likely that we will have to post something in a procurement contract world that you will apply to. Doesn't mean that it's going to necessarily change the whole, it's not like a job interview at that point, right? But there are some things that you would have to submit to us, and then we would be able to select from those people that responded to that posting.
So it has to be publicly posted.
It does have to be publicly posted.
Is that for
10,000
everybody?
and above.
10,000 above. So below 10,000 is not. does
Right
not-
now, from what I believe, I'm being told it's 10,000 and above.
But again, we haven't sat down with all of your information with our purchasing office and ironed out every last little detail. Questions?
So if the salary is less than 10,000, you know, it's a staff member, it's 2,000. Maybe a different process.
It might be a different process. It'll likely be a different process. It'll be still a contract.
Yeah, got it.
Right?
Legacy 7A.
For sure.
Or a mini contract. So they do these mini contracts that are for small purchases under
So
$10,000.
if it's not publicly posted, you know, the $10,000 and above level, and it's
Still
one of
have
the
to
smaller
show-
ones, who decides who hires them? And
We will be drawing names out of a hat. I can be bought, but I'm pretty expensive. Multiple cookies. So
Don't worry, we're school teachers.
So we have to show that they're qualified, okay?
Okay.
We have to show that the person is qualified. And if the money is below $10,000, the best way to do that is to get 3 bids, right? Or 3 people that say, I would do it for this amount of money. But we can also say, we're gonna do it this amount, and we're below $10,000, and this person has had it for X number of years, has great performance, has all of this criteria, and it's likely it will be fine. And we won't have to post it, and we won't have to get additional bids. It's the people that are $10,000 and above that we're going to have to do some more specific work with, which narrows that list, right, a lot. But we're going to probably have to do some more specific things, and it will likely have to be publicly posted as a contract. It's not posted as a job, it's posted as a contract that you can apply for. Yeah, remember that we've had conversations in the past, and I know we're running over for everybody that's here for the advisory committee meeting. And you won't, wait, let me add this one thing. And you won't have to do it every single year. We'll work it out so that you don't have to apply for it every single year, but we'll still do an annual review. You'll still get an annual review, but you won't have to apply for the contract every year. It might be like on a 5-year cycle or something like that. No, that's what I need to sit down and define with them. But that's a pretty standard practice.
Okay, annual review.
Like,
That's not a
just like
program review, or is it just
your performance review. So,
oh, with Duke's?
yeah.
Performance review.
Yeah, and then you can
Yeah, and I will come.
Wait a second, I'm gonna come this next year.
No, you're-
I'll do that.
But if it's not a program review, it's
It's
a
a
performance
an individual performance.
that we have.
So
Yeah,
long
we've
as
already
your,
done.
your advisory board is responsible for doing Dukes. As for all of yours.
So the board-
To do it,
Not just
IAA
special.
So you won't have the same, yours will be.
So we're gonna get a check from USBE if we're chosen, whatever, and then we get a check. I know.
You'll invoice us, and then
Okay.
you will invoice us, and we will pay you out. We'll still, my expectation is quarterly, monthly, however we write it into the agreement. I would like quarterly. It makes sense. But like if you would send us an invoice that said, I did this in Q1, and we would say, and it's all in the agreement, right, in the contract. And we would say, yes, they did this in Q1, and then our financial people would send you a check. Okay?
So we'd be getting paid every 3 months instead of every 2 months.
No, I thought we had gone to quarterly on every.
No.
Every other month. We can do it every other month. If that's your preference, we can do it that way. It just requires you to invoice us for it. We just write it, however we want to do it, we write it into the agreement.
Okay. And the date is it.
Yeah. The date?
Well, I mean, like the date, like I've got to have it submitted by, so I get paid by. Do you know what? I just need, like, I have to put things like that in my planner where I don't do it. I forget.
The other thing to remember is we've had conversations in the past. We've had conversations in the past about trying to move towards, in the future, full-time CTSO, state advisors, bringing you all in-house as USB CT employees. That's still something that I believe in and that we'll be working towards. We're not there yet, but hopefully, fingers crossed, that's something that we'll still continue to talk about, work with you guys. That's the reason I don't want to commit to $500 for the national travel, right? And spend all of the other categories.
No, especially when we need insurance or payment for audits and things like that, because they're expensive.
So hopefully that gives you some information about budget. Nothing is set in stone yet, though that's the direction we're going to be working. We'll get feedback from the directors now as we hit that agenda item, and we'll go from there. Everybody good? Everybody good? Let me see a shake of the heads.
As long as we've gotten all the bad news, if there's bad news.
Oh, there's stuff I don't have time to
I don't think there's any bad news, right? There's a lot of good news, and then there's some hurdles we're gonna have to get through to get to July 1.
But the key with changes like this, especially in our office, is once you do it the first time, it's a bit of a headache to get it done once. But once you do it the first time and get through those barriers, then it's a little bit easier the next time and the time after, because now we know what we're doing. Okay, come on up to the table.
Ring, sus, ring, Jen, new friends get to meet.
I do. She's really nice.
We're gonna go for a walk. You're not invited at all. You're not invited.
Wendy. I said I was gonna, don't say that out loud.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is Wendy already accepts the
I'm just sharing.
Oh, I wish Denise, not really, but you know. I don't.
Right in there, that shows.
Yeah, Venmo, there you go. I don't even. Yes, you do that. And then I have another question for I'll ask later because they're scared.
Put there.
We can send it, it actually goes. It goes to Andrea. And she can send that. They wouldn't give
Yeah, yeah, and you'll have to return.
This is for her to say,
Yeah,
please send
right
that.
around the corner
That's
this
all
way.
I know, I drove out and I got the water was just running and I'm like,
No, it's interesting. They stick
She's
out
saying
around it, so they were kind of wondering what's going on or whatever, and then,
None of us.
you know, you got the text, like, that's where we are.
I should.
Anything.
Yeah, yeah, baby.
So, why did I hire you? So-
Probably.
And then.
I,
Want me to try again?
You gave me two names.
All right, let's do a quick roll call for CTE directors. We have Janet from Wasatch Front South, Jed from Central, no, Southeast, and you brought a friend.
yeah, you introduced us to your, because we didn't know that you were deciding to retire here.
No, I even made him bring his own paper.
He thought I'd give you guys a little more money.
Yeah. Ryan Vaughn.
Hi, Ryan.
Nice to meet you.
Well, I'm currently special ed assessment, IRS, whatever, we're just kind of shifting things.
Well, welcome to the world of career and technical education.
Thank you. I still don't know what CPSO stands for.
We're gonna help you with that. By the end of this meeting.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Apologize, I'm gonna take you back to stolen from your workroom.
On the phone, on WebEx, who do we have?
So we have on WebEx Daryl, Mark Anderson is subbing there for Brett, Stephanie, Rod, and Mindy.
All right, so we are full up, actually, everybody's here.
Yep.
Welcome, thanks for our flexible starting time. Andrew kept trying to get me to go sit on the other side of the room so you could see on camera, but I'm not gonna do it. So you'll hear my voice and everyone else's voice, and there you go. All right. I thought for those of us in the room, to do just a quick once around because we have maybe one or two new faces that you have not seen before. So I'll start here and then we'll just go around. Talia Longhurst, State Director of Career and Technical Education here at the Utah State Board of Education.
Andrew Curtin, and I support CTSOs and Talia Longhurst.
Doug Livingston, STEM specialist.
Try again.
Oh, no, you said I could.
That was awesome.
That might have been in jest. I didn't ask. Technology and engineering is what I take care of.
That was.
Ashley Higgs, Science and Technology. Just kidding. Science and Math. K-8 and educating.
And education pathways.
Joel Marquez, Health Sciences, Protective Services, and Personal Services.
Denise Abbott, HOSA.
Short. Richard Whitworth, my first full-time job is an automotive instructor at Southwest Technical College. My second full-time job is Skills USA advisor.
Erin is allowed to talk. Please state your name and position and then put that back up.
Aaron Bodell, skilled in technical sciences. I'm a pathway specialist over various things, yes.
Jenna Copel, I'm the CTE Director from Canyons District representing Wasatch Front South.
Jed Jensen. I'm Ryan. He's been instructed not to say anything.
You need Erin.
Erin, sign?
Can't talk, won't talk.
There we go.
Yeah, that.
I'm Lola Ship, FCS and specialist.
There you go. Here at our office.
Family Consumer Science, sorry.
Yeah.
Family Consumer Science.
If you haven't met Lola, she's our newest victim here at the State Board of Education. Get back.
Because of her, we have so many shoes.
It's still there, but we don't say it.
Okay.
It's
That's
silent.
what-
It's silent.
No, nationally, we haven't had it for years and years, so we're officially catching up to national standards.
Okay. Get your A out.
Brian Haywood, pathway specialist, oversee kind of business marketing.
John Hanson, DECA.
Buddy Dimer, agricultural education. Holding.
Jewelry making.
Jewelry making.
That should be the first thing you say.
Megan Cook, FFA.
Christine Heslop, I'm a CTE coordinator and representing Wasatch Front North, Ogden School District.
Sue Larkin, state advisor for FCCLA.
I'm Lisa Silverzy, I'm the Assistant State Director for FBLA. Our director's out of town.
Sitting right here, you'll see her in a moment. She had to run take a phone call. Wendy Morton, she's the CT coordinator here. She's here to make sure I don't lie or say the wrong thing. She's all things financial management.
Or offer more money than you're supposed to, right?
But
Or offer more money than you're supposed to.
she tries to, for this one, she kept trying to give me more money. I'm like, no, stop. I can't spend the money I have. No more. She's like, if you don't take it now, you might not be able to get it. I'm like, I can't spend it. Okay. Let's just start with number one on the agenda. DECA and FBLA. Duke's not with us today. He got a better offer. But let's talk a little bit about post-secondary programs.
Okay, so here's some of the questions we had. Duke and I talked, and I know that I think there's 3 of the CTSOs that have post-secondary programs, correct? 4?
HOSA,
Skills.
Yes.
FBLA, DECA. Yes.
So to my
TSA.
understanding,
Oh, TICA, but it's the.
Oh,
Oh, I did.
I did not know that.
okay, to my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, so CTSOs are funded by high school LEAs and none of the funding for CTSOs comes from the actual colleges and universities
Or the statewide management.
for the statewide management.
You all can charge them registration fees.
Right.
and
But
information.
statewide management, essentially no money is coming from them. I guess the question that we've had is kind of what's the expectation there with the post-secondary from the high school, from the directors who are essentially funding CTSOs.
So not an accurate statement.
Okay.
That's where we've been using Perkins funds. The $52,500 annually that we pull out of Perkins has been going to parts of your salary to help with management costs for the post-secondary. In the CTSOs where there is a post-secondary Except for TSA, because I ask this question all the time and he's always said no.
Okay, so part of the Perkins funding does go for post-secondary for the ones that have post-secondary?
Yes, you're not going to see it on this budget because this budget is now changed.
Gotcha. Okay. I guess my question is, what are the expectations? That's kind of where we kind of stand. It's kind of a small, I don't know about DECA, Collegiate DECA is a very small organization. They're having a hard time. It's kind of struggling with membership. It's struggling with support from the collegiate level. It's struggling in a lot of different ways. And I think from my perspective is what's the expectation? What does everybody kind of, where do we stand on that? And that's just kind of my question. And that's kind of something we talked about too.
Yeah. So let me ask the question this way to the directors and everybody that's online. Do they have the option of talking or typing?
You can unmute to talk, or you can type in your chat box, and I will relay your.
So for those of you online, you can either unmute and talk or type in the chat box. So my question to the directors, really to follow up on that then, is, do you care? So we've been using Perkins dollars to help support the post-secondary pieces. For the directors, since you're all secondary level, do you care what happens? Do you have a stake in what happens at the post-secondary level? I'm going to give everybody a chance to talk or type online. This is a moment for all of you online to participate. Is anyone out there?
This is Mark Anderson covering for Brett Callister.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
So the question I have is, so is it using secondary funding to cover those?
No, it's using Perkins funds.
So it wouldn't really affect any secondary then, right?
No, sir. So my guess is then you don't really have a stake in what happens. You don't care necessarily. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. Keep looking at the ceiling. Anybody else out in the WebEx world have a feeling?
Carol said, I had the same question as Mark, so with that explanation, I do not care.
Okay, so then from a state perspective is how I'm going to answer the question. And John, we've had this conversation before. From a state perspective, I feel like post-secondary participation in CTSOs is important when it's supported and when it's determined as needed by the post-secondary partners. So I know with HOSA, you have good post-secondary participation with some schools. Other schools, not so much. And sometimes that, say again.
It has grown quite a bit this year.
And sometimes it kind of ebbs and flows as you have different people in different places. Mm-hmm. I think that post-secondary institutions speak with participation. If they find it of value, they'll participate. And it's not a quality thing about the CTSOs. John and I have had this conversation. It may be that they have a priority in a different organization, and that's where they want to spend their time and their money. It's not a quality statement about your organization and whether it's good or not. It just has to do with their limited time and resources and where they want to put that initial priority. So I think for me, where you can get support, you should do it. If you're not finding good support, then I don't know that there's an expectation that you continue.
Well, what kind of conversations does post-secondary have with the state?
Yeah, so they meaning the state TSO advisor will work with the local post-secondary institutions to see how much participation at all, what their needs are and how those needs can be met, if at all.
So do these guys contact?
Oh, you guys speak to that. I know John.
Yes. How that works?
Yes.
About 7 institutions. Our fall conference was about 60 students. Our state conference was about 100. So I mean, it's statewide is quite small, comparatively speaking to the high school level.
How many?
Ours.
Denise, how about?
Oftentimes, for us, it's been the secondary students who have reached out at their own post-secondary institutions and gotten the club approved at the university and then started the club and then come back to us and say, hey, we have this club. And so some have been really super supportive. So for example, the University of Utah is sending 9 students fully paid to the international conference in June. And we're taking probably close to 87 post-secondary competitors.
So so for the national travel allowance that we provide, that's only for secondary students in approved CTE programs.
They don't get any.
They don't get the $300. They don't get any part of that. So post-secondary, again, my expectation is that where there's a need, you all facilitate that and make that work. If it's determined that there's not a significant enough need to make it worth your while, that's up to you.
One question. You guys include your post-secondary at your state convention, correct? Or do you have a separate convention for them?
No, we have it's all
It's at the
included
same
in-
time? Both of them?
About half of our competitors are post-secondary.
And ours is separate.
And yours is separate and this is a separate?
It's a 1 day.
Is it 1 day, yours is a 2 day?
Well, it's an evening and a day.
That was just my question.
About half of our membership is post-secondary.
Half?
Yeah.
It's post-secondary.
Hey, this is
A little
Mark
less.
Anderson again. A question that I have is, how often do they work together? How often does like Skills USA post-secondary or with some of your local secondary schools, just out of curiosity?
The big event, other than state conference, what used to be our fall leadership conference, but our college post-secondary people have found that to not be as useful as it once was. So their participation is waning significantly of late.
So would it be fair to say they're really only participating at the state conference?
Primarily
And
at state conference and national conference, where they really represent Utah well, by the way.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, does that give you guys enough?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to number 2, start times for state conferences. I know there have been some emails floating around about start times. Remember, the agreement that we reached a couple of meetings ago was that fall leadership conferences would now be, and for all future times, 1-day conferences, right? And that state conferences, we would try to hold to 2 days with a 1-night stay. Where humanly possible. So feedback from directors. Sorry, I guess to be able to see this, so I remember who's online. So especially from some of you that are from far out, Mark and Daryl, Stephanie, even for you, Rod and Mindy. So I know, let's talk about the start times on day 1 of your state conferences. HOSA starts about 1 o'clock-ish, noon. Goes until about 6 p.m. on the second night.
On the first day, some contests.
We have about 3 contests that start at 8 a.m. on that first day. So
And you
that's
go on the second day until?
Yes, until the contest close. Then we have awards program till about 8:30 at night.
TSA?
2 days, 1 day for junior high, 1 day for high school. They both start about 8 with the awards thing at the end. They're probably done 7.
Okay, but those are 2 different student groups,
Right.
right? Okay, so a little bit different for you. So it's
Yeah,
really
you
still
don't
1
have
night
stayovers
overnight.
unless there's the day.
I don't think anybody's, yeah.
We come
So this
in,
is FBLA.
FBLA, come in Monday night, compete 6 to 9 p.m. Start Tuesday morning at 8 a.m., compete till 9 p.m. and Wednesday finish by 4 p.m.
So yours is really 2.5 days.
We were given permission to do that. We have over 70, we have at least 72 events. 1,400 kids, 1,400 with 275 advisors and chaperones. Our
Start 8 a.m. first day, conclude the next day at 1 p.m.
Becca. Oh, sorry, SFA. Sorry, Megan.
Around noon on a Thursday, we end about noon on a Saturday.
So we start at 11 on the first day, and I had sent an email to our board member in St. George area to see if we could start at 9, because it would solve just so many logistical problems, and that we kind of were waiting around all day for the kind of the southern Utah schools that have to travel very far to come in. For us, it would be really, really helpful just logistically to start earlier, but we currently start at 11, and I don't know, we're going to talk about possibly moving up to 9 a.m.
And how late do you go on day 2?
We try to get out by 3:30.
On day 1, how late do you go into the?
We go until about 6 on day 1 right now. If we can start earlier, then we go until about 4:35.
So is there any reason why you can't move it till later in the day? So I know, for example, I always go back to HOSA. I'm sorry, it's what I know. You start at noon and you'll go until 9 or 9 o'clock at night-ish.
Judges. It's our biggest concern. It's the hardest part. If we can start earlier, then we can use the same judge for multiple events. Right now, we have to have 40% more judges than we normally would because they have to stay. We can only do 1 judge per 1 event. And this year, I probably had 30% that signed up and didn't show up. Like, we just have judges. It's a really big concern. And it's been so much easier at the Salt Palace for us, business-wise, because there's a lot of business people, but it still is, that's our main concern. So we used to have our conferences, and later we try to do it from like 5 to 8, right, for part of our conferences. It's just so hard to get judges at that time. So we try to keep it in the workday because most corporations will allow their employees to go.
Do any of the rest of you have trouble getting judges to stay later in the day?
Yes. Yep.
I don't know, like, because I don't handle judges, but I do know on Monday evenings, what we use judges for is limited. It's not, like, we do the majority of our performance events Tuesday morning and Tuesday afternoon, and we do some performance Tuesday evening, some performance Monday, but it's not as heavy as Wednesday morning, Tuesday afternoon.
We're similar. Most of our events that require judges fall during the business day, so I don't know. I'm sure it would be a problem for us, though.
If we could start
So feedback from directors.
Just one thing I was gonna add, like, I've recruited a lot of personal friends to come judge at night, and they'll come judge because they're a friend, so they're not necessarily a business person.
Yeah.
So like on that Monday evening, we have all of our preliminaries, so it doesn't take someone who's a professional speaker to come and judge public speaking one, for example. So that's how I feel like we're successful in the evening, is we really have tried to recruit our personal friends who want to come see us, who want to come see our organization. That's just some feedback she's sharing.
So Rod's question was, so if they start at 8 a.m. and it's held in the Salt Lake area or Logan for us that are in the south, that really means a 2-night stay.
Sure, it does.
So, any
And
other?
Mindy said ditto for us in the northeast too, the 2-night stay. And Daryl said, I'm not getting any complaints from our far out regions about the status quo of what's happening.
So that would be Logan and Rich and.
Yeah.
Well, so we've gotten a little feedback. Let's not solve the problem yet, because when we talk about budgets, I want to throw out some ideas that we've been tossing around, and that may help with some of this. But before we go on, any other feedback from directors? Like, are you wholeheartedly, absolutely opposed where they have to of having a 2-night stay? Like, do you have district policy that would disallow that?
Stephanie said the biggest complaint from Mount Lund is the cost of the stay. So if the state rate deals were able to be arranged, it would help.
Do all of you with your hotels get state rate for students?
They haven't been.
So.
In Salt Lake, they do, if they ask for it.
And I think that's one of the keys is, are districts asking for state?
Like Farmington, Layton, we have a real hard time.
They charge a high price.
Mindy said, no, our district supports it. It's just the extra cost to our students. Rod said, no district policy, but complaints about 2-night stays. And Stephanie said Layton was a complaint about cost. I think was that about cost.
Okay, all right. Yeah, Layton feels like there's some sort of.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, let's come back to this topic in a few minutes and we'll see if we can maybe solve a couple of problems. Let's move. Somebody had a question about hiring new CTE teachers and being able to establish or set up during the hiring process CTSO responsibilities. Andrew, do you remember where this came from?
Joel? Miss Denise.
They're nice.
Oh, yes, it did. Because these new teachers get hired and then we contact them and I understand the deer in the headlights, they're new teachers, but then they've never heard about the CTSOs and now we're not asking them only to teach, but to look at to the CTSOs, and it would be nice if the principals or somebody who's hiring had that pre-discussion.
We are on the new teacher academy committee.
That's what it is.
Well, that's and in,
Segue.
yeah, in the new teacher academy, we are introducing CTSOs. There's a whole it's an online module. There's a whole module for them to actually go through their own CTSO that they will belong to, and then they're required to know who the people are at their school to talk about how it will be, how it affects or how it's integrated into their classroom and how it affects their students that way. And then what else, Lola, did we have on
They
there?
have to contact one of you.
Yep, they have to contact the
That's
director.
part of their assignment, just to get to know you and talk to you.
So that's what we're doing, the new teacher training as modules go rolled out. So
So is that a statewide?
that is
It's a new and improved initiative that we're going to be.
so it'll come up during, as an endorsement requirement.
Okay.
So it could be that that's 2 years into their thing before they get serious about it and do it. Be overly optimistic that they're going to see it early on. And it should not be seen as just a replacement for new advisor training that each CTSO does. It's just pointing them in the right direction so they can get busy.
So Canvas course, is that
Yes,
online?
it's Canvas.
It'll be an online Canvas module, yeah.
Utah has a state license with it though, so that's why we're using it.
So one of the things I want to throw out, my guess is well, this I know for sure. So for the LEA directors, you're not doing the hiring. It's your principals that are doing the hiring, right? And your principals may not understand the need and the financial implications around CTSO advisors. So I would always encourage all of our CTE directors to make sure you're working with your local principals so that they understand what your needs are and the requirements of the position, so that as they're hiring, they're doing due diligence and trying to set expectations. So I think that's the first line of defense. And however we can continue to reinforce that and put that out, that principals, as they hire, need to really help set the stage for this. But then through the SAP, the endorsement process, we're trying a whole new teacher academy process, which not every CTE teacher will have to go through, but we hope that we'll hit a majority of them, I would say, or at least a good number of them.
New ones.
The new ones. And that will be part of that training that they will be required to go through. So we won't hit everyone, but we should hit a fair number of them. Lisa, does that help?
So
It does help. We had 42 brand new advisors this year. It was crazy and awesome at the same time. Awesomely crazy. So
I was just gonna say my experience, because our CT coordinators sit in on the interviews, so they often talk to these candidates, but the candidates are deer in headlights. So even if you have a supportive principal or a CT coordinator there during the interview process, talking about it, they'll say, oh, yeah. And then they get hired. I mean, this has happened at our tech center multiple times. I've been in on the interviews and we really stress this. And then they get working and they go, what? So I think it needs continual follow-up, because during the hiring process is not your solution.
closed my book so I can make a comment here, yeah. Actually, I have two comments. One is this, I think this content that we're gonna put up in the new teacher CTE orientation thing that we're doing, I think that we can make that available to anybody, not just new teachers. Especially on the CTSO thing.
That's a great idea.
So that content, or item one. Item two is, and this is something that I try to do with teachers in the skill and technical sciences area. If they have a question about getting, or whatever their responsibilities are with Skills USA, they holler at me like, hey, what am I supposed to do with this? And if I can get out and do a site visit or something as a specialist to help walk them through that process, that's one of the things that I try to do as a specialist here at USBE. Anyway.
How many CTSOs have a new chapter advisor mentoring sort of process, orientation process? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So all of them do. So I would encourage you to, as you work with those teachers and as you're doing an LEA or district orientation, make sure they get in touch with these advisors and they can help get them set up in that new advisor mentoring process.
The other thing that I wanted to say is just thank you to the CTE directors who paid last year for the advisors, the new advisors coming in to spend a day. We had 37 of those new advisors come to a just special HOSA training, and the CTE directors covered a stipend for them. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It really did help.
Daryl online said, I typically sit in on the hiring committees when CTE hiring is happening. So, and Rod says he does as well. So I think like Janet said, sometimes they're there so they can bring up CTSOs and as they're interviewing people. Mindy said that training would be incredibly helpful to new CTE directors, this new teacher training they're talking about. So I think like Aaron said, it should be available. And so, and Daryl said he agrees with Mindy that would be very helpful to CTE directors also.
So let's move on. Oh, go ahead.
We've got the right group here, so can we get some feedback as specialists from the state advisors on what their CTSO's training method is, just a brief overview of what you do?
So for new advisors.
New advisors.
So for new advisors, Denise.
Oh, for me? Okay, so we start the day. We have some of the.
One day, right?
One day. We have the HOSA alumni come in, a couple of them, to talk about the impact that HOSA has had on them. And then from there, we assign them actually their charter number and password, and we get them right on the website and go through the website and expectations, how to select or elect officers, what those officer expectations should look like, some parent forms, and then we have lunch together, which HOSA pays for, and then we take competitive events just like they were actually competing and walk them through that entire process.
What time of year do you do it?
We do it the July 30th, just right before those news features. Yes, yes.
Okay. Skills USA.
We've been doing it in conjunction with our fall leadership conference, doing session for new advisors.
During the time.
During the same time, with mixed results there. Oftentimes we get the same, shouldn't say that, the usual advisors, and not so many of the new ones coming to that event. So we were just brainstorming how we could maybe improve that.
A problem implicit in this,
They have to actually be
they have
attending.
to be able to register for that event and
Right.
to get to there. Thinking about this.
Yeah.
It's a problem. So we're working it out.
But your typical day, what would that look like? Your agenda.
Same thing, orientation, expectations, website, state website, national website, how to register people, how to select officers, right?
Is it a full day?
No. It'd be hour and a half, 2 hours, pretty quick and dirty. And then we don't have.
Yes, I
So Mike, 4 times a year, winter conference, summer conference, LTI, and fall leadership. That's about an hour and a half, and it's an outreach thing, just making contact with the new ones, setting them up a lot like what you're doing with, and then just using that as a starting point.
So it's more
less
one-on-one
formal.
kind of thing.
No, it's a group, but it's still just the basics. I'm Mike, here's the website, here's how you get started, and then he just deals with them individually from there.
BLA?
So every other year we have an advisor training. It's an evening and then all day the next day, I think, or something along that. But the new advisor training goes along, either we bring them in the afternoon for 3 hours or the morning, but I'm pretty sure it's the afternoon of the new advisor. And we go over, again, the same thing, how to pay for dues, how to register, what's important. On the years, and then they attend the advisor training, so they get how to recruit, how to fundraise, all that. On the other years, and this takes place in early September before fall leadership, before we have to start registering.
But it's on a school day or a Friday?
It's a Thursday night, Friday.
So it requires a day out.
A day out of school. But on the years we don't do the advisor training, we bring them in the evening and we pay for their dinner like we do it we go to Beppo's. We pay for their dinner and we, again, 2 or 3 hours of this is how you pay dues. And I don't know if they get compensated by their districts. I'm probably not. So they come just for the information and for the dinner, but I'll suggest to do that they ask to be green. We call it green cheese in our district. Anyway.
Again, remember, we cannot
We can
force,
ask them.
right, we can't force the districts to do that. They do it out of the kindness of their heart, for sure.
No, we really need some lead time on that. Because if we only hear that it's happening a week before, that's problematic.
Okay.
So if you're gonna do something off contract hours, we need heads up.
Okay, how much in advance? And do you just need an email from Judy? Or what?
Yeah, we just need to know it's coming up so we can anticipate those costs and how many teachers and that sort of thing before you, it really helps to know before you let the cat out of the bag. Because once teachers are going, are we gonna go? Are you gonna pay? And we're going, pay for who, what?
Okay.
So we really need to know in advance.
So for the CTSOs, we'll keep going in a second. For the CTSOs, your calendars that you submit to Andrea should reflect these dates and times. Because as the LEAs look at those, they should be able to see that well in advance. Okay? And call it exactly what it is, a new advisor orientation or a meeting or whatever, so that they can clearly see what it is.
We do a new FCC advisor training, kind of same as Denise format. We do 8 to 4, first week of August, right before they go back to school, and just go through the basics. I took actually Denise's format and used it last year, and it was. And then we do some training at fall leadership. That's our other training that we do.
So ours is a little bit spread out throughout the year. We obviously have a new tutor training at our summer conference, workshop style training offered twice. Then we also hold at our fall conference. We do it in conjunction with our teacher organization and our secondary ed prep professors at Utah State, so they kind of help head that. And then at midwinter, we have them meet up as well at UACT. So 3 times a year they have an option. But I would actually like to kind of take on what Denise is doing.
Betty, how many ARLs do you get? ARLs, teachers coming in from?
Anywhere from 5 to 10.
Most of yours come through an ag ed program and they're pretty well.
We've had, sometimes when the district struggles to hire somebody, they look at an ARL.
Okay.
We do a one-day conference, usually end of August, beginning of September.
So on a school day then?
And then we try to bribe them. We try to get like nice polos for them so they can have like some things to wear, and then we give them some materials like testing materials and things that they usually have to pay for that we try to provide as much as we can. We go over, I think the biggest focus of that is just trying to implement a culture of what DECA is. That's kind of that's my biggest priority. It's just like, this is what we do and this is why. And this is why it will be beneficial for them. And then we go through every aspect, like the ins and the outs, the website, recruiting, competition, calendar, and try to answer questions.
So if I can follow up?
Yep.
So content is being written by the specialists. We're developing that. You guys are going to have an opinion about something that should be in there. So please share it. Right? Just contact the respective specialists, they can pass it on to those that are.
When you say content, what are you referring to?
What do you want us to say
Oh, I
in
see.
this orientation piece, right? We're gonna come up with a message. We're gonna say what we feel is right. But if you have a particular topic that, you know, think needs to be addressed or a way it should be done, please share your opinion.
Okay, so for those of you in the room on staff who are working on the new teacher academy, is there anything else? Like, do we have a start date? Any other info you want to share? Because we're revamping our new teacher academy completely.
The new teacher academy will be known as the CTE orientation. It'll be online, available anytime, so they won't have to worry about scheduling dates anymore. Through a Canvas course, we expect to have it available in August.
Of this year.
This year, yeah. So we don't plan on offering the old format any longer. So there's a group of teachers that are halfway done. Licensing will be working with them. We've already talked with them and told them what their requirements will be, you know, an adjustment to their plan so that they can finish up. It's going to be focused on CTE material exclusively. The New Teacher Academy had two missions, really. One of them was to, you know, put as much CTE specific information in there as we could fit. But really it rode off of it. It originated on more of a pedagogical stance and how CTE teachers approach teaching. You're gonna leave that to licensing. And we're just gonna take care of things like CTSOs and advisory boards and the licensing process, you know, coupled with that.
Program and quality review standards. Essentially.
Stuff you would never know any other way than if somebody explained it to you.
Real quick, I don't know, let me interject here. What we have, Lola and I are over the CTSOs, and the assignment for that, and really quick, is just upload a document. They're going to have a portfolio on there through Canvas that shows your understanding about CTSO that best aligns with your content area. That includes following information. They need to identify the school state advisors and also know the state conferences and competitions. Identify the student chapter leadership at their school. How much they got to know, how much it costs for students to join, membership and everything like that. And then also identify an activity / competition from that CTSO that they could align with the standards in their classroom. So they're bringing that into the classroom as well. So
we're covering more than that, but that's what we're going to expect them to regurgitate.
Yeah.
Right? So that we know they paid attention.
Oh, how long do you anticipate this train? How long is it going to take somebody to go through this?
The existing series of courses is 4 full days.
Right. But how long is this online version?
We're guessing, we're thinking we've got 11 modules. We haven't produced it yet, but we're targeting about a half an hour each. Actually take in information, and then there's the assignments. So it'll be some time. But it'll probably be less time overall.
So what Doug's saying is 5.5 hours of content. It will take some time to complete the assignments.
And will they be doing it over weeks, like?
Anytime they want.
It's just open, you're not gonna be, okay, I see.
Whatever they're
On their own
whether
time.
Whether it's a SAT or an ARL plan, the length of that would be.
And remember, ARLs, that's a dramatic change in January. So the burden of this is basically going to be on endorsements, right? That's where we're going to be asking to do it.
And for directors in the room, Wendy just informed me that they're going to be looking at, we've got a work group of staff working on this new teacher process. They're also going to be taking it, tweaking it a little bit, and doing a whole new director training online through Canvas instead of doing them early mornings before directors meetings 4 times. So you'll see a shift that way.
In addition to.
Was it in addition to? You didn't tell me
What do we
that.
Why don't we give up our early mornings?
We have to give them
There
some
will
time.
be negotiated a process that may or may not include early mornings before directors meetings and or an online Canvas learning platform for new directors. Gotta be more clear than you whisper things in my ear.
Another, I don't know if everybody goes through this, but with CTSOs, some of us actually have to do fees for our
I knew this was gonna come up, yes.
That's a concern to me as we're getting new people of understanding there's now a cutoff point. They have to have those fees approved by our board or else they'll have to wait a year. I don't know.
So my understanding as a former teacher in a district is that process was LEA determined and has been around for a long time. I always had to have fees into my board a year in advance so they could approve it. And they could reject. So I don't know necessarily that in most LEAs that process is a change, but I will give you a little teaser. At Directors Meeting on April 24th, we will be spending some time in the secondary meeting talking about school fees. We'll have the person from our office that's over that. She will be coming to our meeting and answering all your questions and providing information so that you all are aware and that you can continue to work on that at your local level.
But in a more general response, this is a statewide training, and so it has to be non-LEA specific, or it won't. We're going to have to leave those issues, to some kind of
For you all
supplemental
to
thing we do.
discuss.
I just know that's a state rule now, so all districts will need to follow.
So what we learn on April 24th, you guys will need to make sure you're awake during
Right.
that part of the
Right.
school fees discussion and not in your happy
It'll be
places.
in the ribs. Okay.
We've got,
We'll throw a spitball at you.
there's a whole module that's CTE money.
Right.
So
let's just make sure it's updated with the school fees rules, because they will affect the CTSOs. Okay, are we good with item number 4? Can we move along?
He wants to talk.
wow.
And we're jumping to number 8. Okay, you're not dismissed when 8's over.
So, we are in the process of updating the college and career awareness standards. If you don't know what that is the middle school required course for grades 7 or 8. So, will you pull up those standards?
Well, Julie either has to exit or she's gonna pull them up.
So something brand spanking new is I have put CTSOs in the standards because I've kind of designated CCA as the gateway drug to CTE. It is the moneymaker in middle school that this is where kids get to learn about CTE and what it's all about. And we always talk about how great CTSOs are and all this stuff, and kids don't hear about it until the secondary level. So I added it into the CCAs so that kids could start to get an idea. The other thing is with the college and career awareness standards, as we were updating them, we wanted to talk about pathways as a whole, but we wanted to leave it so that it could be region specific or it could be district specific, so that kids could actually look to see what their feeder schools offered instead of being at Whitehorse and talking about all the great things that are available in Alpine, yet they don't have the access to it. So on Standard 3 is completely CTSO. And it has 3 standards within it. The first standard is just identifying all of them. Standard 2 is what's the benefits. This is just a list. There's much more. But standard 3 is what I need your help with, because we want students to participate basically in a mock CTSO event. So when we created this, a lot of teachers said, okay, so I have to basically recreate a state competition. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm looking for. So an example that I'm planning on giving at summer conference was I helped judge at HOSA, and I did the 5-minute prepared speech. And the theme was define your purpose. So if I was teaching CCA, my first week of class, I would say, okay, you guys, we're going to write up a thing of what's your purpose. Because CCA is all about, they should be leaving CCA either A, knowing what they want to do and how to get there, or B, knowing what they don't want to do. And that's the whole purpose. And so you could use this and say, okay, they've participated in a mock CTSO event. Or I went and did DECA and we did, what did we do?
They were marketing plans.
Marketing plans. And so they had the target market. So it's still tying to the pathways and workplace skills that are in standards 1 and 2. But I sent out an email to the specialist to try to get someone to be at summer conference on June 11th to come and talk about your CTSO, because this is going to be brand new to a lot of the middle schools and junior high schools. So right now, I just looked at my proposals. I have something from FBLA, I have something from DECA, I have something from HOSA, and I have something from TSA. I really, 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 really need representation from every CTSO because teachers are going to want it. And so it doesn't have to be a state advisor. It doesn't have to, it could be a teacher that is doing awesome things in the classroom that is just amazing that wants to come and present. But it's something that our middle school teachers are going to have. Otherwise, they're going to be like, TSA, that's where you go through the airport and you put up your arms and hopefully it doesn't beep, type thing. And so I really want representation and just talking about standard 3 and what it is you want them to tell them in CCA.
Sorry,
Yep.
but June 11th, what conference is that?
That's the second day of the College and Career Awareness and the Work-Based Learning Conference. The reason it has to be June 11th is because June 10th, we're doing industry tours and we're just not doing breakout sessions that day.
And that should, correct me if I'm wrong, that should not overlap with any of the major other.
It does, I think it does with FFA, doesn't it? Buddy?
Summer conference.
But we'll have someone there.
But he's gonna, so I've talked to Buddy.
But for the rest of you, it should not overlap with your own area.
We're in the same place, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're good.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's, I think there's 3 of them, aren't there?
Yeah,
Would it overlap?
I need Skills USA.
We gotta work out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who do we need? We
I
need
need
Skills
FFA, FCCLA, and Skills USA.
11th.
What's specific?
Basically, you are going, it's kind of like new advisor training. And you're trying to tell this, kind of. Well, they're telling them they're going to have the glass eyes of, what are you talking about? What is it that you do? That sort of thing. I would like to, if you have an idea of how they could do a simulated CTSO event in the classroom.
Already got it.
Perfect. Then you're one step ahead. But I think that's the biggest thing. Because teachers can tell you what CTSOs are because it's in the standard. They can tell you the benefits of it because it's in the standard. But if they have to do a simulated CTSO event, they're going to be like, let's go bake cookies. That's FCCLA.
They might want to know this, where to get a list of your events.
Yeah.
So they can pick one.
Or show them where they could get ideas from, that sort of thing.
Okay, so for FFA, FCCLA, and Skills USA, you're going to get a name and and contact information to Ashley as soon as possible, or who will be there on June. Okay?
Sugar butters.
We good?
Yes.
And this link, tell them that.
Oh, this link? Well, yes, if I hit 20. I'm just kidding. So the link on the agenda is the standards for college and career awareness. So if you want to send it out to your people, currently it is in public comment. So if they would like to send feedback for 20 more days, and if I get 20, so
Well, now that she's recruiting.
because right now I'm only at 1.
Are we good?
Yes.
All right, we got a lot to talk about, so let's want to jump. Bracken had a question back on number 5, national travel.
Oh, yeah, and I was trying to think of what we even talked about. Some questions have come up about the money that we give the first place winner, right?
Travel scholarship,
Yeah, the
yeah.
scholarship. That sometimes students are having to choose, they place in multiple events, right? And they have to choose which one to go in.
Can you define multiple events?
So multiple
events.
Multiple means
Talking about
Within the same
Same
CTSO.
CTSO.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Multiple events they win in or get in the top 3, place top 3. right, within one CTSO. So yeah, they place in several events in that CTSO. And maybe one of them is a team event and one's an individual. Yeah. And so if they choose to go in their individual event and it has to be the team, then can't go because you have to have all three of them or whatever, right? It doesn't work because they choose to go for the money, right? They choose to go for that $100 that comes with the individual event or whatever.
But each person on the team will get
300 from the state.
Well,
But if there is a qualifier in some of the CTSOs, not just.
Yes,
the
they got
first
second.
winner goes
So
first.
Yes, if they
in
got
DECA,
second.
in
Choosing,
team
yeah.
role play events,
Yeah.
there are two people. If one person decides they can't go, the other person automatically can't go
Right.
because they won as a team, and so they
Right.
have to go as a team.
Right. And so what we're trying to figure out is, I think ultimately the conversation or the communication has been that the money stays with the event, right? So like, what if you took somebody who placed first, let's say in a marketing event individually, but would really like to go with their second place team event? Can they have that $300 from their event? Does that make sense? To be able to go with their team. So, and I know normally that hasn't happened, right? But I just wondered, if that was was that a rule? Is that a?
So first of all, we just went around, I think before the 2:00 meeting started, and every CTSO just told us that students can only compete in one event at nationals, plus maybe a recognition or chapter sort of event. So a student has to choose anyway. They have to choose whether if they qualify in more than one competitive event. I use that word loosely. I hope you all know what I mean. Then they have to choose one. They cannot do both. Correct. Well, kind
But
of.
if they got a first place and then went to second place,
Right.
they don't get the money.
Right. That's what I'm saying is that what I have messaged out is that it's tied to the event and not the person, right? Right. It's tied to those top three places in the event, but not the person who won it, right? It's so therefore, if somebody chooses to go in another area, then that money stays with that event,
Yes,
right?
because the other people have bumped up.
Correct.
And so the next
So
person
we
down.
just, as we were chatting and Andrew and I were chatting, is that we've had a couple of teachers who are like, why can't, especially if it allows the whole team to be able to go if this one person is able to, you know what I mean? And I tried to tell them that's kind of a local LEA, help them raise the money, do what you can,
They
but
would only get it
but I
if they
just-
were first place.
Only if they were first place. So if the first place winners can't go and second place goes in their place, for instance, if you only take one person or team in an event, second place doesn't get the $300. They do get it.
They bump up to the first place.
Yeah, they do get it.
Because first place isn't attending, was going to get the money. However, I have to say this, because we've all promised in the past, and we need to hold to this promise, that you are assuring that when you bump kids up to higher levels, that they have mastery scoring, so that we're taking still the very best. And you're not taking a 10th place winner who really sucked it up, but there were only 11 kids, right? So you are assuring mastery.
We don't even recognize them at the state level if they don't do that.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, I've got a question for them. Like in FBLA, our rule is if like a team of 2 to 3, if one person can't go, we allow the one person switch. Do you guys have, is that no team can go? Is that a state rule or is it a national rule?
We have national rules that dictate, so we have chapter events, and in the chapter events, essentially every person in the chapter worked on those events, so those can be swapped out. For every other event, they cannot be swapped out.
That's too bad.
So that's how it is for that. So
Yeah.
they have to make a choice.
But a 2 to 3 member team could lose one person.
Yes, yeah, and if it's not a chapter event and there's like
Yeah.
3 people that wrote a project and only one can go, that one person still goes. They don't need all 3 in order to go, but we can't take away 2 and add 2 more in from the school.
Oh, I see what you're
You
saying.
see what I'm saying?
So the one person can still go alone, but you can't bring
Yes.
in 2 others.
The only thing they can't is if it's a team role play in DECA, because it's like a role play is not for written papers, it's fine. But for a team role play, it was the team they worked together to create to win. And
So-
so they have to go together.
So why would a kid want to go from placing first in this event to a team event if that team can go without him?
I think it was in the situation that I got the email on, they couldn't. There was some reason why, like, they were down to the very last of who could attend that team right event. And so it was either that person went with them or they couldn't go. So, but I just wanted to make sure that really is the case, because that's what I've been messaging. And then can we somehow maybe remind our advisors that that is a hard, fast rule and everyone is following, because I got another email that other organizations do, or CTSOs allow those things to happen. So I just wanted to check and see if that really was the case, so that, okay.
No, that's a hard, fast rule.
Okay,
They just understand.
That qualifying level, we're leaving to each CTSO to specify, right?
Yes.
And they can still go, it's just that they don't get the $300
Right.
scholarship.
Well, and this is Talia's humble opinion, that they should not be representing the state of Utah as a competitor if they have not just exhibited
I
that.
share that, but
And $300 is only for 9 through 12.
I don't.
$300 is only for 9th through 12th grade in approved CTE schools. All right, quick glance around, we're all good? Okay. All right, let's jump to funding.
And we have one more question about national travel while we're on the subject from Mindy. Is there other districts, LEAs that do additional funds for their first place winner?
That's a local LEA decision.
Yeah.
So Janet, do you guys assist with funding? Jed? No. So no from Canyons, no from Emory. I'm going to hazard a guess and say the vast majority do not, but there are some that do.
We do.
Well,
Local school district adds $200 to each first place winner.
So $200?
We match what the state gives,
So
300 for first place, and then we started this year giving 200 to second place and 100 to third place. I didn't know that.
I did not know that right now. Wow, that's awesome. Way to go, Arkansas.
Yes, Alpine's 100%.
Alpine pays 100%.
Granite funds some for first place.
Yeah, but they change year to year.
Yeah, that's true. Logan, they are funding quite a bit, but I think that's the school. It's not Logan High School, it's Ridgeline High School.
So it's a chapter funding sort of
It's,
thing.
yeah, this is the school's foundation.
Does that help? Mindy, was it Mindy?
Yeah, and there's more chats in there that she'll see.
Okay.
Nuts to be an advisor.
Okay, good to move on. All right, let's talk a little bit about budgets. We ready? All right, so you'll each grab the budget paper when you stopped at the desk to sign in. Let me start out, because we're going to have some major changes in how we take care of fiscal responsibilities with CTSOs. So in the past, for many years, more than 20 plus years, the way that we run CTSO management, so remember what we're talking about now is not CTSO organization funding. So the money that the CTSO organizations have, the O is actually organizations, so I'm actually repeating myself. The CTSOs have to run events and all the different things that they do. That's all based on student fees, advisor fees, donations that they get in. That's not the money we're talking about. What we're talking about are statewide management costs that are paid and run through our office and historically Bridgerland Technical College as our fiscal agent. So if you remember for many, many years, the way that we've run that is that each district, each charter school on the big giant spreadsheet, on the column that's called CTSOs, you earn money in that column as a relative percentage of the CTSO members that you have in your district or school, and then you get a dollar amount for that, okay? Then what happens historically is that we bill you back, Bridgerland Technical College as our fiscal agent, bills all of the districts and charters back for your proportion of the share that it takes to run the organizations at a USBE level. And then you retain a small amount of funding that you get to keep in your CT add-on allocation. Does that sound familiar to everybody? Yes? Yes, okay. So the reason that we've historically always done it that way is because USB is not allowed to receive money as a general rule. Can't send the money out that belongs to you and then bill you and have you send it back to us. So the way that we have always wanted to accomplish this task, this responsibility, is to withhold off the top. So we're not sending you money and then billing you back. So we've done this in a couple of different areas before, and we've finally gotten approval this year in both the skilled cert category and in the CTSO category to be able to keep money here and not send it out to you and then bill you back for it. That makes sense to everybody so far? Shake your heads. Brian, way to go.
So the $5,000 we get, we don't have to get back.
Well,
Just wait.
actually, the answer is yes. So when we went to the legislature this year through our financial operations group and requested the ability to withhold money, what they ended up giving us was new money. I knew that would be exciting without even asking for it.
Like that never happens.
Tell anybody.
We must not realize.
I know. So it's best if we not say new money. We probably don't want to say that out loud very loudly. What we want to say is we now have money in our office through which we can accomplish these responsibilities for both skill certification and CTSOs. So we will no longer be using our kind, generous, patient, flexible, what are all the words I need to use, friends at Bridgerland Technology College who have been so kind, never collected an indirect fee for any of the work they've done for us. In all the years that they've done it, they've been notified that we're going to keep the money in-house now. They will finish out fiscal duties through the end of fiscal year 19. That's all the summer national travel, state staff contracts, et cetera. And then they will close the accounts out, send everything back to us, and starting FY20, we have money here now that will not impact all of you, by which we will be able to run organizations and costs. I know, right?
That never happens. I didn't.
So what you see in these 3 pages represents money that is now no longer part of CT add-on allocations. So we are not going to ask you any longer to approve the budget since it's money that comes here for this purpose. We'll budget, we'll be responsible, we'll report out to you how we're using that money. But since it's not off the top of your funds, we're going to go ahead and budget and use. And absolutely, I'm looking for a lot of feedback today. So we have some ideas, but we want feedback from all of you online about how this impacts, what some good ideas are, other ideas that we haven't thought of about how to use this money. Because what we now have, if you look at the page that's on the screens right now, your first page of the document, if you see that state dollar amount right there, $969,300, that number is normally in the $600,000 range. So not only did we get an additional amount, we got a lot more additional amount than we're used to having.
We did ask for that. If they were going to let us hold it off the top, we did ask for a larger amount than the 600, knowing that way maybe we wouldn't have to ask for a larger amount every single year.
So the other amount that you see is the federal dollars. This is our Perkins dollar amount. We talked about this a few minutes ago. This is, now I got meetings confused. Was it in this meeting? It was on our last meeting, sorry. So normally $52,500 is what we pulled out of Perkins. That money went to assist with the post-secondary costs of running organizations since your dollars can only pay for 9th through 12th grade. So what I've done is increase the Perkins amount just a little bit, up to $56,000. We may adjust that up or down through the next coming years, depending on what we need and how we are going to run. Okay. So let's start with item number 1 on the account, secondary management costs. We jump to page 3 on the spreadsheet. That's the statewide management. What we've done is do an increase up to $45,000 for each organization or state staff. And I may or may not have mentioned this with the state advisors as we were going through this. Remind me to talk about treasurer functions because I feel pretty strongly about this. Okay, so we've increased, they've been at just hovering under $40,000. So this is a $5,000 increase for each CTSO or management cost. You can see that vast majority of them have multiple people. They divide up the work. There's always a main state advisor. They divide up the work. What you're seeing is last year's staff and last year's salaries with this year's extra $5,000 added in just on the top. This is not the way it will actually look by the time we're finished contracting and doing all of that work, but I have to account for that money somewhere so that the numbers add up. Okay. You'll also see that we've added Educators Rising in there. We're going to be working with UEA, Utah Education Association. They have approached us numerous times wanting to see how they can help to get that started and off the ground. They may actually have access to some grant money from NEA to bring in and help with the conference startup and some of those pieces. What we're looking at are strictly the management costs here again. So there's a lot of people excited about that. What questions do you have about that? Oh, so you'll see, thank you, Wendy. See, there's a reason I wanted you to be here today. You'll see in the post-secondary column, the federal column, sorry, not post-secondary, federal column, that you just plugged in $7,000 into each CTSO coming out of Perkins. Thank you. It's a P word. I have post-secondary on the brain. Out of Perkins, that will help cover things like post-secondary costs, things like middle school costs, some of those things that each and every CTSO has. Before, we just kind of randomly tried to guess at percentages, throw some numbers in there. I also am a lover of even numbers. That's why it's $45,000 even instead of $39,158.50. So that's why we have the numbers that we have. So we will continue to work on that. A quick stop in the moment to talk about secondary management or statewide management. So it is still incumbent upon all of your advisory. This is especially important for the specialists. It is still incumbent upon you as specialists here and your advisory committees for each CTSO to conduct an evaluation of the state advisor for the year, as we always do, make recommendations again about whether we continue the contract. And then for you and the state advisor to work on state staff evaluations and how those continue. It's not always a guarantee. We always try to look at those and be careful about making sure that people are meeting expectations, et cetera. So we will get you that information. Do not, for specialists, do not use the same contract that we've always used. So go so far as the evaluation. Be ready to give a thumbs up to those people who should be on this list and approximate amounts that you determine with your state advisor that they're going to be paid, and be ready for that. Do not send out the contracts because that will look completely differently this year. Okay? The other piece is most CTSOs have a person who functions as the treasurer, a financial person with financial responsibility. Winnie and I talked a lot about that this week, and I think we both feel very strongly that it should be someone other than the state advisor, and probably someone who is not a family member of the state advisor. And I think we have a couple of organizations, and Megan, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys use USU as your financial, you have your own accounts.
For which piece? They
Yeah,
have
I guess.
CTSO money?
For the CTSO.
Finances.
Yeah, CTS. Maybe.
So let's talk about that because you guys are a little bit different. So don't freak out on me quite yet. Let's talk about that. But for the rest of you, I think having a person who functions as that financial person for your organization, who is not you, who you oversee, and who is not a family member of the state advisor, is probably a really important thing. That, I've said it before and I'll say it again, that financial transparency and that ability for us to be able to stand up and say everything is above board, everything is not in question, that we're good, we're solid, financial accounting practices are being followed properly is super, super, super important. It becomes more important every single day. So any great heartburn for folks about that?
Check down that list again, not the advisor, not the specialist, not a family member.
Yes.
Got it.
I have heartburn.
Okay.
Because my daughter-in-law does do the books for us, but she also collaborates with with Julie Boren and Beverly Watkins, and she does, though she has control of it, she doesn't have sole control over it.
Who signs the checks?
Michelle Landers, Julie Boren, Beverly Watkins, she doesn't even sign any checks.
So typically our finance office has problems if it's a family member, but even more specifically, a family member living in the same household. So if you're sharing, like if you guys were sharing a personal account, so they have a lot of problems with like a spouse or a child that's living in the same household. We'd have to ask if there was any. We'd have to ask. I mean, honestly, we'd have to present it to them and we'd have to find out. But I know same household, I'm like 99% sure they're going to tell us no.
But she's been the person who's been responsible for putting everything on QuickBooks and keeping the QuickBooks
Is she
up to
in
date.
your household?
No, she is not. She does not live in it.
PSAs can have a similar issue. It's going to be pretty disruptive.
Good.
But that's a spouse issue living in the same home. So that's that's something that's generally not smiled upon from
That's what I'm
accounting
saying. I mean, you're going to
practices.
have to deal with it. It's-
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so just, that is a concern, right? Knowing who these people are, that our financial office will have some issues with that.
And she actually doesn't even sign any of the checks.
Yeah, and they
At
may,
all.
that may say, they may look at that and say, that one's okay.
Mhm.
I don't know until we present the information to them. But I think in the same household is gonna be a huge, if they're in the same household, will be a huge concern.
So if-
More so.
If we continue to have,
And who selects them, right?
we have the same people keep record, but isolate them from writing the checks so that whoever is signing the checks is out of house. Two people, not related, out of house, all that kind of stuff. Is that enough separation to make people happy?
I won't know until I talk to them. I honestly don't know.
Okay. All right, so that's secondary management costs. You'll see the 304,000 out of the money that the legislature has given us, and 56,000 coming out of Perkins. So that takes up your secondary management cost line. Any questions from districts, regions on that one?
Awesome. And it's awesome for everybody because these guys get a well-deserved increase and it's not affecting our pockets. Because we spend boatloads of money on CTSOs. And basically, we got this allocation and then had to give 90% of it back. So it was kind of silly. When in reality, we spend so much more. So thank you.
So
That'll
just
be
to
great.
clarify, did you say that column is still gonna remain? No. So on the big spreadsheet for all CTE directors, on the budget sheet that you guys get, the breakout, the CTSO column will remain. You will still receive funds for career and technical student organizations in those columns, but you won't be reduced. But again, you will likely spend more money than what you earn in those columns, but you will still have a chunk that gets awarded to you through that process. Okay, everybody's good?
So
Everybody
this-
good online?
This passes the supplanting test big time because it's state money. So it's going the other way. And the feds are never going to argue about
Yeah,
that.
the
right?
only issue we have is we did a little bit of an increase from the 52 to the 56. But we have a new CTSO coming on and
This should be fine.
there's a lot of things that we can.
Well, and Perkins 5 rules are changing. So let's be clear about that really quickly. Perkins 5 rules are changing. We can now pay for a lot more related to CTSOs than you've ever been able to pay for before. So mainly, the main thing that you cannot pay for is student membership fees. And advisor, thank you. Any membership fees. So to join the organization, you cannot use Perkins dollars for. Or help with transportation, with hotel costs, for students or advisors, for national travel, for jackets, if you want to keep. So students cannot own the jackets that you pay for with Perkins, but if you want to keep chapter jackets that people can borrow, you can pay that out of Perkins as well. Not buy band uniforms with
Not band.
Perkins.
I'm just
Some-
like band.
Yeah.
Like fan.
Sorry. Did you just say you use it for football?
No, for both.
Oh,
Like their jacket.
you got some blue kids, some red kids.
What?
Yes, we just changed the patches.
But just to caution to the advisors, don't get real excited about that because the directors in your district may have a completely different vision on how to spend Perkins, which might not include that.
Right.
And particularly like in my case, we've been, we wouldn't be able to do that because we've been paying for transportation and national travel and all that with state funds. So to put it into Perkins would be a supplanting issue, which is illegal. So don't get your hopes up on that one.
It all depends. It all depends. There's a whole bunch of pieces that have to align.
Yeah, unless we take a gap year. Would you guys like us to take a gap year and not spend any money on CTSO? Probably not.
No. Okay, let's go down to the next line then, which is national competition costs. So remember that, we talked a little bit about it already, that we've been funding in the last 14 years that I've been here, $300 per first place winner and for state officer that travels to nationals. We've been providing a $300 stipend, scholarship, if you will, that goes towards that. Wendy and I went the rounds and debated a lot this week about what to do with this. We want to continue funding some national travel for students. We budget based on a 5-year historical high for that. So what I really need from all of you is some feedback about this. So we've been doing 300.
I was gonna say, I don't think I got $30,000 last year.
So what we've been funding is 300. When I first did my initial draft of this and had Wendy look at it, I had $500 a student in there, which I know most districts are going to say, wahoo, that's a great thing. However, what we debated was it is not likely that I could sustain $500 indefinitely. I thought to at least keep it at 400. However, the big question is this. Is it better, from directors' opinions, to, for a short time period, increase the amount to whatever the dollar amount, 350, 400, more, less, not less than 300? Is it better to keep that for a short time and then in the future have to pull that back down to say a $300 level? Or is it better just to keep it where it's at and hold steady?
Really hard once you increase stuff to then back down. Personally, I'd rather just keep it the status quo or increase it a little at a time, incrementally.
So we think we can.
Because if you give us $500 and then it's 300, you're going to hear a lot of grumbling.
I understand
That's
you're
my
asking
opinion.
directors, but I'm confused. Are we able to go to 400 because there's a reserve that we're burning through?
It's because we now have 900,000 instead of 600,000 to spend.
So why would we not be able to sustain it?
Because the hope is someday that we can bring state advisors in as full-time USBE employees.
On that impact, yes, okay.
Which adds to our costs.
Right.
Big time.
And I don't have enough money now to do it. The 900,000 isn't going to buy me that. So I've got to continue to request more money to be added to that.
Yep.
But I don't want to set the bar too high that now I need even more money that I probably wouldn't get.
So Talia,
Okay,
can
makes
I
sense.
ask so if you're not going to 400 and you stay at 350, does that money just sit unused?
Yes, it would go and carry forward.
And at some point, our office would require us to spend it. We'd have to have a spend plan. But that plan would be that we would tell them, right, that we are looking at bringing people on either full-time, quarter-time, or something like that as employees here, which takes up more money versus what we're doing now.
I have a proposal. So we're not going to Robert's rules this, right? Why not leave it at 300 and have an annual add-on thing that, if it's there, great. If not, everybody understands this money can disappear if things change. And it goes back to 300.
Well, and that's part of the question that I'm asking. Is it better to give more or not?
What they're saying is
It's a message.
outline it as a base. You get 300.
But you still have the same problem.
Yeah, but I think it's different understanding.
If it was communicated as, we're supporting the first place winners with $300. On years that we have money, we could flex that up to 350 or 400, but plan on 300 and be happy with that. And if it's a good year and we get more, then great, but it might not be. I think that would be fine.
So they're saying online, Stay consistent, perhaps small increases over time. Can we set aside some money for when mistakes are made during award ceremonies to pay for those mistakes, or when someone's announced and then I don't know, when someone is announced as a winner for a week and then later told they're not a winner. I don't know what the story is behind that, but small increases over time. How often do CTSOs add additional categories to competitions?
Regularly. The answer to that question is regularly.
And so I know
And
that
that's-
there's been an increase.
Hang on.
Yeah.
So that's why we budgeted the 5-year historical high, because we know that CTSOs will add events and you'll have more students, and that's why we continue to track that historical high. And then we have a reserve budget in there as well.
Specifically.
Oh,
That's a different category. So we account for those additional winners through reserve and through budgeting on a 5-year historical high. That's how we do that process.
Make a comment, even though it's for directors, about like Ogden School District. I really like the idea of the base of 300 plus add on each year, because Ogden School District could, for example, say they match our first place winners, which is awesome. But they could always say, we're just going to stick to the 300 and match the base. We're not going to go up and down each year. I mean, yeah, and so that's why I like that idea, is I don't think it's going to hurt districts who are paying for first place winners or who are matching funds.
Okay, so I think what we're going to do, what you'll see on the budget that I take to directors meetings so that people can see and we show our transparency, you'll see me change this number back down to 300. We'll continue to budget for national competition the way we always have to account for those flex in numbers. You'll see a change on this front page to reflect that $300 amount, okay? Just like that, and then I'll fix it on the back side. Matter of fact, now, because it's all a formula. 307, 560, gosh dang it, it's not our own number. 307, 560, there we go, okay? So, let's go to the reserve line. Does that work for everybody if we do that way? Let's continue to budget at 300. We have an other category that you'll see on the last line of this front page. Let's talk about what's going to go into that other in just a second, okay? All right, we will build in a reserve just in case there's anything weird. If we don't spend that full reserve, we'll carry forward to the next year from year to year. All right, Leadership Training Institute. This is one, we do this every year. This is for each organization's state officers for the following year. We bring them together for 2 days, basically, half day, full day, half day, and do some leadership training with them. It's a really great event, opportunity, leadership experience for them. And what we've determined in the past couple of years, we were only budgeting a small amount out of our money for that, out of your money for that. And it was actually costing us a lot more money. And so we increased the amount that each CTSO had to pay out of their organization money to participate in that. My proposal is, since we've got money right now and it's not costing the districts anything, that we go ahead and fully fund that event, which is about $20,000 a year. So you'll see that coming off. We're setting aside some money for Educators Rising startup. We likely will not need that money, but I want to have it in the budget in case something comes up. And then we have the other category. I anticipate that this amount will go down year after year as we get going on this, but here are some of the ideas that we've thrown around about how to spend some of this other money that would be helpful to the LEAs. So your feedback about this is going to be really important. One of the things we talked about is doing some small grants targeted trying to help LEAs, especially LEAs that are rural and may need some help because they'll have additional hotel nights at some of the events. Transportation costs, the farther you are away, you know it costs you more money. It may help with some of the things that school fees can no longer help with, but we would construct a rubric by which we allow for grant applications to assist you with some of the expenses of CTSOs. So that's one idea around. We would look specifically at rural schools, necessarily existent small schools, those that have new programs that you're trying to get up and running. And by that, I mean new CTSOs in your schools. Thoughts particularly about that idea? Thumbs up?
Yeah, I liked it.
Thumbs up. Brian, look at you making all these decisions. Go.
Jen, you just retired.
Right.
I have.
Christine.
I'm sorry, I had to use the restroom, and so I missed that whole conversation.
Just do this.
Say yes, thumbs up.
We talked about
Oh.
it.
I think I know what you're talking
Yeah. Online.
Having some network issues.
Oh, that's really great. Just when I needed the most amount of feedback. All right, we're going to keep moving ahead, and you guys are now going to represent all of the regions. So good luck with that. We talked about that one, so I'm not going to do it. We talked about that one. So one of the other things, a couple of the other things we've been talking with the advisors about is liability insurance. So USB maintains a small liability policy that applies to all CTSOs that helps cover some of the event sorts of things. But each one of them maintains anywhere from a couple $100 a year up to $7,000 a year in a liability policy. So we want to get more specific about what that looks like and how those organizations are being covered and being, being covered represents a lot of different things. And so working with the CTSOs, establishing a uniform sort of expectation and then helping them pay for that so that there's no questions, no liability being incurred that we aren't being careful about.
Is that for the state advisors? Is that what you're talking about?
It's for the organizations as well. So it might cover the state staff. In some instances, the policy covers the advisory boards, state officers, I'm hearing, state events. And that's why I think you have such a disparity in the amount of coverage that each of them have. Like I said, it goes from a couple hundred up to 7,000 a year. And so we'll get with some folks who can advise us on what they should be covered at. And then we'll look at using some of these funds to help pay for that.
Because right now our students are covered through.
And
Pay a fee for each kid. Our district requires it's like $6 or something.
Yep, and so that's our working assumption is that the students themselves are covered under your LEA policies. They're your students. You have risk management for those students. But each organization incurs some liability that we need to make sure we're dealing with. So that would be another thing that would fall into the other category. LTI we talked about. One of the things that we do every 2 years, and we always talk with you guys about, are the annual program reviews. Actually, not twice yearly, every 2 years. Wouldn't that be fun? Twice yearly program reviews. Biennial, every 2-year program reviews. Those really are not fiscal audits. And so one of the things that is becoming more and more apparent to me is we need to make sure that the organizations are conducting audits or having audits done of the organization finances and that we're being very careful about that.
Could it be possible to use some of that money to hire an accountant to do the financial audits for all the CTSOs?
Not to hire, but to contract.
There's a contract, that's what I'm saying.
And that's the goal.
Oh, that's the goal. Okay.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
And so that part of that other money.
I've had a hard time finding somebody that's willing to do that for our organizations. They're
So-
either like huge organizations or like I've had somebody that's, I've had a hard time trying to
So
find
there's a
somebody.
list of independent auditors that the state uses on a regular basis that we can contract with, most likely.
Cool.
And they would do all of them. And we would just cover that cost for you as a requirement of doing business.
When will this start?
Sometime after July 1. So directors, thoughts about that, other ideas that you have for how we could be helpful to both the organizations and to all of you?
They're back on.
Thumbs up-ish?
I think it's a huge help even just to tell the district.
Sure.
Anything online?
See what they do with
I like the first idea the best.
Which was the first idea?
Yeah.
Rod, what's the first idea?
What's the first idea, Rod?
The grants? The mini grants out?
Yeah, the mini
I
grants
bet
to
that.
help out small districts, rural districts.
Hey, Rod, Randy already asked for it all.
Daryl said mini grants too.
Yeah. Well, it depends on how many people apply.
I just know who's going to be writing them, I feel like, on our side, so BJ.
You mean writing the grants?
So they will improve.
So you have to understand, my idea of a grant application is a 1-page.
Max, half a page is even better.
I am not a 20-page grant.
Yes, we want money.
All right.
You can't keep them that.
No.
It's got to be like 10 pages.
Short, sweet, to the point, details, that's all I need to make my decision. I do not need a novel.
Yeah, we're all about numbers.
Yeah, I'm liking the grant idea as long as the grant process is not huge like you're talking about.
Not huge. Mark, we know how it works.
Just staple on it, they won't read it.
Yeah, there you go. If there's a staple in it, you're not doing it.
More than 1 page, and I'm done, it goes in the trash.
Julia, my question would be to make sure, I mean, I'm always a proponent for or a champion of our small schools because we have a lot of those small schools. But this is also state money, so we do have to think about schools across the whole state. So is there ways to, like, all of that money, does it have to go to one thing? Can it really kind of be spread out to benefit as many people in schools as possible?
Well, you do have to remember that each LEA is already getting money that they can spend on CTSOs. So my intention with this is to help those who are most in need first.
So we did talk about though new programs starting up. We did talk about that there's some additional costs there that maybe we could make some criteria around new programs. We know that's expensive regardless of where the LEA exists, where they live. But
Or like the uniforms could be maybe a grant for.
I don't know if I'm gonna do you.
But so we could, it's not, I don't think we've settled on anything final, but I think some of those things are things we've talked about.
Couldn't the grant process include all of those things?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah.
I will definitely
Wouldn't eliminate Wasatch Front schools from applying.
Right. But I will definitely say that not every LEA will get a grant.
Sure.
But it will be more than just a small rural school.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And would it just be grants or could you also say, okay, also the liability insurance? Are there a couple of things
for
that
sure.
can fall in?
That other category will include numerous things.
Okay, that was
the audits, the liability insurance, those are right off the top. We have, in my opinion, we have to think about those things.
Okay, that is essentially my question.
It's not more this or.
It will be a compilation of things that will come out of other. Any other thoughts about things coming out of the other category? Thumbs up. Hey, Jed, he didn't retire after all. All right. If you think of anything else, directors, and if you talk with your regions and you come up with some other good ideas of how we can be helpful with some of this money, let us know. We won't set that other in stone quite yet. We've got to build some things out and do some more investigating about how much this is all going to cost and what it looks like. So, and for CTSOs, don't go not paying your liability insurance quite yet. Keep paying it until we know what we're doing and how that's going to look, and then you should cancel at that time. All right. Let me make sure I covered everything I wanted to. Educators Rising, we are planning on bringing that on officially. So we've had some questions from a couple of teachers. Each state determines who your approved CTSOs are going to be. In Utah, we follow the Federal Department of Education's approved CTSO list, of which there are 10, actually there's more than 10. But we have 7 here. The 2 we currently do not have are BPA and Educators Rising. We'll be bringing Educators Rising in. That will start. The legislature does not have to approve that. No one else has to approve that. Our office does. Our superintendency, our state board knows that we're doing that. We're working in collaboration with Utah Education Association. They will be coming in. They will be a CTSO. They'll start small and we'll gradually grow them and hopefully that'll take off. There's a great post-secondary world of educators rising out there already in Utah. So I anticipate it will be awesome. And that will be Ashley's job.
So it will be awesome.
Okay, what other things do we have? We have just a couple minutes left. Other things from the regions and from CTSOs.
Oh, sorry, fall meeting, September 17th, that's DECA Fall Leadership Conference.
Okay. Your point.
I get to miss. Oh.
And then I have a typo, it's supposed to be April 15th, 2020 on there for the second one.
Oh.
That's my typo.
We're gonna stay until Monday.
Yeah.
So those are tentative dates. We'll work on a new date for fall meeting.
Good, because we also have our Host of State Advisors Management Conference right over the top of that date.
All right, so it looks like we need a new.
Not fall.
You want to ask everyone when their fall
But then
conference is.
OSA comes up and they're like, whoa, OSA.
Change
Leah?
Loud and clear.
I need fall leadership.
Yes, go ahead.
So when you changed the competition thing for the students back to $300 from $400, so in the future, is there going to be an possible add-on to that or not?
Possibly, but I will not be able to tell you that until we iron out some other things for FY20. So right now, the statement will be that it's $300 per first place winner or state officer going to nationals, and the possibility exists that there could be a small additional amount added in any fiscal year if we have the money to do so. And that again is FY20, not this summer. You have students right now.
I understand that.
Yeah, so it's not for this year at all. Is that okay, Mark? Is that all right, Rod or Mark?
It was Rod, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
Don't
all
worry, Rod, I know your voice. The voice of an angel.
All right.
It's not the Mark
You know
too.
nothing. You know nothing.
I am afraid Ashley knows way too much about all of this. All right, really quick, around the room, your fall leadership conference dates for 2019.
October 7th or 8th. I have to wait for UVU to tell us what day they tell us.
Okay, Hosa,
October 1.
TSA.
This fall.
Sorry. We're fired. We're fired. CTSO advisor for TSA.
September 25th.
That's FBLA, October 2.
What was?
October 2.
October 2. We actually are waiting until our board approves our calendar, because we're going to probably be moving it out of December and into November.
Sometime in November.
We'll make sure it doesn't overlap anybody else.
So right now, it sounds like you're open.
We're good on Thanksgiving.
I had my vision team pulled the day before Thanksgiving, so that's always a good thing. I had mine second.
September 17th.
Hey,
You're the problem child.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah. So don't plan on that fall meeting date.
Everything up.
Tentatively plan on the other one. We'll continue looking at calendars. Any other questions, concerns from the directors?
I don't have a question or concern, just a shout out. Becky Sue came to the tax program area meeting in our district. She gave an excellent presentation. I told her this. I said, I have been in CTSOs for a long time and I learned more in her hour presentation than I've known for years. So shout out to Becky Sue. It was really good.
So we may actually hire you back. Wow.
I wouldn't want to let her go.
Thanks, Deb. Anybody else? Online? Any concerns, issues you need to bring up? CTSO advisors, specialists?
I don't know if I should do this or not.
What are your?
We need to resolve the whole students that are going to 2 national events and the $300, and which CTSO gets to take the hit, because we won't know that.
So that has
Well,
not been our policy. If a student qualifies for first place or is a state officer in more than one CTSO, we've been paying for each.
They are eligible to be on
That is
that.
correct.
Is that what that said right there?
Yes.
Don't question it.
Okay.
Perfect. State officer.
Okay.
So that's actually
Never
not a
mind.
question to ask. For each CTSO, would you hire, for lack of a better word, would you select a student to be a state officer if they were a state officer in another CTSO?
No, it's against our policy.
Okay, so as long as you hold to that, but they're competing in multiple CTSOs and they qualify, we will pay them the $300 for each national organization.
Okay.
I think it was LEA driven, that policy, not
Yeah, okay.
from my memory.
I wouldn't want to hurt the student. If they're good enough to go to multiple
Yeah.
events, multiple national conferences, then they should go.
I agree.
Okay, thanks.
That
Never
was
mind.
easy, Richard. Wow, you.
Really? It chose an easy one. That's good.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah,
By the
John's
way,
our problem.
there was 5 inches of snow in Cedar City yesterday. True.
Okay, can I, sorry, your answer as advisors. I'm just looking at the advisor sharing from 1 to 2 p.m. on our next 2 meetings, but that doesn't seem like a lot of time.
Like, we didn't.
Yes, sir.
Are we good? Yes. Okay.
We can, yeah,
12 to 2.
okay. If that's
And
what
that
they
would give
want.
us time to actually share out
So
best
remember
practices.
that into your new contracts will be written attendance at all meetings. So
I thought they were always mandatory.
I thought they were in the contract before.
apparently not ever.
The expectation was that.
Just for,
You're right. His contract looks a little different.
after today, they're gonna write out the contracts. We want everybody here but John.
So John is just curious.
We'll make sure the meetings are always on.
All right, last call for any other agenda items. Going once, online, twice, type fast. Thanks, we'll see you in the fall. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you for